Well, Sparky shows you one thing here. He shows you he doesn't feel that Willie is overworked in any sense. He was so quick and brilliant last night. He feels he can come right back and do it tonight. And let's see if he can.
5 games. Well hit, deep right center, chasing. Is Wire, Bumpery, and this one is gone.
Earlier tonight, that ball is hit tight center field, made it into the lower deck, 375 feet away.
'1984 was just an unbelievable season. It's probably something that I'll never get an opportunity to experience again in my playing career. To go 35-5 at the beginning of the season is just something that is beyond comprehension as far as I'm concerned. I sat down a few times while we were in the midst of doing that and saying to myself, I can't believe that we're actually playing against Major League ball clubs.
I don't know who, you know, in the back of their minds was hoping that the Tigers would slip, but you know, this is something I didn't want to happen. You know, it was, you know, you only get a year that things like this happen.
That year was a childhood dream of everybody on our team at that time because it was just too good to be true. We led from start to finish, which is an unheard of thing to happen in the major leagues, let alone the American League East. And the pressure was really more on us all through the year than if the race was closer because everybody was shooting at us, everybody was waiting for us to falter.
In 1984, that was a dream coming true.
Everybody was around our clubhouse, and it was one of those years that everybody thought we had it won by June 1st. Now, I've seen too many times where this can disappear on you, and I would say that 84, of all my years, was the one that I thought was the toughest on me.
Let's start with the Detroit Tigers wrapping things up this past Tuesday at home.
It was the most unsuspenseful division race in history. After all, there wasn't a single day this year where the Tigers weren't in first place. They finally clinched it Tuesday and popped the champagne.
I don't think anybody in their right mind would have thought that we would have got off to the start that we did or played as well as we had the whole season, but it's just a tribute to how many people with character we have in this ball club and how much determination we have.
It's the best year I've ever had in the big leagues, but you know, I can't really say I've had a good year. The guys that picked me up scored a lot of runs. The defense has been great, and we just all worked well.
We fought hard all year long. These guys have worked so hard to get where they are now, and fans have pulled very hard. They've been hungry for a championship ball club, and we're able to deliver, so I think everybody's just feeling great right now.
If the NL East story was about stars and the AL East about dominance, then the AL West was simply about survival. Multiple contenders all scratching, but only one would advance. A week after the All-Star break, KC was struggling 11 games under 500, in 6th place and 8 games out of 1st. But the Royals of 1984 had winning in their DNA. This franchise had been playoff regulars for the better part of the past decade, and the veterans of this group would make sure they took advantage of a weak division.
It feels good and feels real, again, despite whatever records we have or anybody else has.
In September, a pitching staff that seemed too young at the start of the season had matured into one of the most adept in the American League.
We had a young guy named Bret Saberhagen come up. Looked like he was about 17 years old. Looked like a clubhouse kid. Mark Gubazak, the type of guy that I think anybody would want their daughter going to the high school prom with. Danny Jackson. You wouldn't want to meet this guy in a dark alley. Well, the one thing I didn't know is these guys could flat-out pitch.
Anchoring it all out of the bullpen was Dan Quisenberry, whose signature submarine style was good for 44 saves.
Got him! The quiz comes through.
Although they finished with just 84 wins, the Royals won the division and were moving on to the 1984 playoffs.
It is over! The Royals are the American League Western Division champions.
I think because nobody expected it, it was such a great feeling and it was a great celebration because 84 was supposed to be a rebuilding year, and here we are in the playoffs.
Well, it is
a beautiful, cloudless, windless night for Game 1, the Detroit Tigers against the Kansas City Royals.
The Tigers went into the American League Championship Series as heavy favorites. They'd won 20 more games than the Royals during the regular season, the largest difference in Championship Series history.
The Detroit record superb, the Kansas City record poor, so that would make this upcoming American League Series look like a mismatch.
Like the regular season, the Tigers jumped out to a fast start as Alan Trammell got them going in the first.
It's a deep left field. Motley going all the way back, and it's up against the fence and rolling back on the Tartan turf. Whitaker comes in to score. Trammell's going for third, and the Tigers lead 1-0.
Trammell would score to give Jack Morris a 2-0 lead in his first career postseason start. And that was plenty for the Tigers' horse, who went 7 strong innings, leading Detroit to an 8-1 victory.
The City Royals. The Tigers won Game 1 behind the power pitching of Jack Morris. And this, a vivid evidence, a strikeout of George Brett. The Tigers had home run power to go with Jack Morris's pitching, the most notable, Alan Trammell. That home run to go with a triple and a single, the hitting star of the evening for the Tigers. But the key play of the game, bottom of the third, bases filled, 2 out. George Brett, sinking line drive, great catch by Kirk Gibson. It's the American League Championship Series. It's another beautiful night here in Royal Stadium in Kansas City. No threat of rain, temperature in the 70s, and the wind not a factor, only a mild breeze. And last night, to set the scene for you, hello again, everyone. I'm Howard Cosell. Good to have you with us for Game 2 of the American League Championship Series. Last night, the Tigers manifesting the same kind of team strength and versatility that they had almost the entire season of '84, where they won 104 games, were too much for the Kansas City Royals, who were the surprise winners in the West. But the Royals have been through despair before, a fact of which I reminded Dick Hauser. Dick, I want to take you back in time. You dropped 5 in a row to the Yankees at the stadium. Leave the ballpark a forlorn group, apparently out of things. Fall to 11 below 500. And yet, your team never faltered, and above all, neither did you. What was your thought process?
Howard, I just felt like we still had 2.5 months left in the season. If somebody didn't bury us early on in the season, we weren't buried in May or June, we weren't buried in July, we still had a chance. We got Wilson and Brett back. We've been a much better club the last 2.5 months of the season. But one thing in particular, our young pitchers have pitched good all season. And as the season went along, they were a little bit better in August and September. That put us over the hump.
Your young pitchers, and one of them is Bret Saberhagen. And this kid will be the youngest kid ever to take the mound in postseason game as the starting pitcher. Younger even than Jim Palmer, younger than Valenzuela, younger than an old friend of yours, John Podres. Can he stand up to this kind of pressure?
Well, he has all season. I think early on in the season, real pressure was coming out of spring training, 19 at that time, and making a major league ball club, pitching well the first part of the season when we didn't score runs. But I think the key is the last couple of times out, 16 consecutive scoreless innings against the California Angels, games that we had to win. That's when Saberhagen was at his best. We're hoping he can do that again tonight.
That to you is pressure equivalent to this start tonight?
I don't think it's quite the same. I'll be honest and admit that this is a little bit different, but I do think there's always pressure in this business. Must games in September are very tough. These games are even more important.
Peppery little guy, Hauser, and Jim Palmer was but a few days short of being 21 when he pitched his first game, World Series game in postseason play, beating Koufax 6-0 in '66. Now Saberhagen, even younger than you were then, and you had an interesting talk with Dick Hauser behind the batting cage about Saberhagen. Describe it.
Well, we talked last night of how important it is for the young pitchers of Kansas City to get the game to Dan Quisenberry. 44 saves for Quisenberry, 45 last year. I said, Dick, is this guy, who's this guy like? Is he like Mel Stottlemyre? And he looks a lot like him. He also looks a little bit like Bert Blylev, and he has the same kind of fastball, Howard. He's very sneaky. But he said, no, the guy he reminds him most of is Catfish Hunter, and I could not think of a better pitcher to be reminded of, especially when you need to win the ball game. And tonight, of course, is a must game. The important thing is that he goes out there, and as Dick Hauser said, he has pitched exceptionally well. He beat California in his last start 4-0, a complete game. And when they asked him after the game, they said, well, how did you do it? He said, I grew up in California. I saw the Angels. He said, I knew how to pitch to them, and I did it. Well, he saw last night's game. He saw now not how to pitch to Detroit. And I just hope that he kind of comes back and retains his poise. And that's very hard for a 20-year-old kid to do in this situation. But he has an outstanding arm. He has not a great breaking ball, but pretty good control. And I just hope he pitches well tonight.
Starting lineup for the Detroit Tigers, leading off Lou Whitaker. Then a man who's irrepressible, Alan Trammell. After him, Kirk Gibson. You've just heard about Gibby's improvement. Then Lance Parrish, RBI and home run leader of the team. Darrell Evans will be playing third tonight, bats next. Rupert Jones, and will be developing his story tonight. And then Johnny Grubb, a one-time All-Star. Chet Lemon after Grubb, and then finally Dave Bergman. That's the Tigers starting lineup, Mr. Michaels.
And defensively, Howard, Kansas City remains the same lineup tonight for them. Steve Balboni, as we look at their defenses at first base. The steady Frank White is the second baseman, and the hottest hitter in the American League after the All-Star break, Onyx Concepcion at shortstop, with George Brett 0 for 4 last night at third base. In the outfield, Darryl Motley is in left field. Center fielder, the man who covers all the ground out there in the spacious park, Willie Wilson. And the right fielder is Pat Sheridan. Back of the plate is Don Slaught. And on the mound is the youngest man in baseball history to ever start a postseason game. He becomes that tonight, 20 years old. Bret Saberhagen, youngest man to ever start a league championship series or a World Series game. The umpires, again, Bill Deegan is back of the plate, John Bible at first, Randy Crystal at second. There are the others, Jones, Denny, and Nothnagel. So they go with Deegan again behind the plate. He did a very good job last night. Lou Whitaker leads off for Detroit, and the count is 1-0. Whitaker, Trammell, and Gibson in the first inning. With the Tigers sitting very pretty right now. Even if they lose tonight, they go home even, and the rest of the series is in Detroit as Whitaker tries to bunt his way on. And the count is 1-1.
And Howard, in that conversation I had with Dick Hauser before the game about Saberhagen, he said the most impressive thing about him is he went to the instructional league last fall and he walked one batter in 46 innings. So we can expect to see a lot of strikes tonight.
Hit foul off to the left. Saberhagen earlier in the season was being used as a reliever. He pitched exceptionally well down the stretch against California as the Royals had a good month of September to overtake the Twins and the Angels and win the division by 3. 2 years ago, Saberhagen in high school in the San Fernando Valley in California. Went to Cleveland High School in Reseda. The Royals, Howard, was scouting him. He had a sore arm. His senior season, played a lot of shortstop, but still they knew he could pitch, signed him as a pitcher, and here he is 2 years later in the playoffs.
Seems a very self-possessed kid, very confident in his speech at least. What was that, Jim, as you look there at a ball? What was that, Jim? Dick was telling you about he doesn't pitch low.
Well, he does pitch low, but he also pitches high. He has good enough fastball where he can get it up in the strike zone, something that Bud Black couldn't do last night. He just has a good arm, and there you see that fastball. And basically, if he had his druthers and throwing that fastball at 93 miles per hour, he'd like to keep the ball down in the strike zone, but he has an effective enough fastball to come up and in on the hitters and keep them aware for that breaking ball away.
And the 3-2 pitch to Whitaker is fouled away. Last night, the Tigers got rolling early as Whitaker singled and then Trammell tripled. Before the inning was over, the Tigers had 2 and never looked back as they won 8-1.
Basically what happened, Al, is that Whitaker has done the same thing. He ran the count to 3-2. You have to throw him a strike, and he singled.
Chopper hit toward the middle, and Concepcion would have had to hustle the throw. It would have been very close, and as it turns out, Whitaker is aboard at first base. We'll see how they score, and it would have been a very close play on a slowly hit bouncer. So again, the Tigers have the leadoff man on, as was the case last night.
They scored in an error.
Could have really scored it either way, taking into account Whitaker's speed, which is above average.
We must find a way to stop Alan Trammell, Hauser told me. And, Jim, you were there. We said you must find a way to stop this whole line.
There goes Whitaker. Trammell is an exceptional hit-and-run man, fouling it away. A lot of people in the American League who follow it closely feel that Trammell is the best. But here he fouls it away, and the count is 0-1.
Well, we saw last night he tripled over Motley's head in left field. Then he homered to left, walked a couple of times, and then when Huseman made a nice pitch away, he singled to right field. So he can move the ball around. He can hit the ball out of the ballpark. And that's why, as we said last night, was the most valuable player candidate until he hurt his shoulder in midseason.
He doesn't go this time, and it's fouled away, and the count is 0-2.
You saw him, obviously, try to go to right then.
Trammell, type of hitter that if he gets the pitch he can drive, as he proved last night, tripling to left field. He's got some power. He talked about his closed stance. 0-2 pitch in the air to deep right center field, but a spacious ballpark, and Willie Wilson is able to roam back to make the catch as Whitaker tags at first and advances to second. So at least Lou, knowing that Wilson had room, was able to get back and move himself into scoring position on a long fly ball to center. One away, and Gibson is the batter.
Now that's an interesting stat right there. And as Whitaker took second on that long fly, and early evidence again of the aggressive type of baseball that a Sparky Anderson managed team plays. We saw repeatedly last night how even when they were ahead 8-1, he kept using everybody on the roster, playing to win, not to pile it up to win. Many managers in baseball and many football coaches, once they have a lead, try to sit on it, to play not to lose. Anderson has never played that. That was an appeal play right there, and it was denied. Key difference, don't you agree, Jim? Playing not to lose and playing to win.
Well, it's a very important difference. Of course, Sparky does have the horses to play that way.
That's true.
Saberhagen working on Gibson. Takes a strike. Saberhagen, he is, or was going into the season, used to performing in a major league ballpark when he was at Cleveland High School in Reseda, California. In the city championship game, they held it at Dodger Stadium, and he wound up pitching a no-hitter 2 years ago. Little different circumstances this time. They thought time was called, but Deegan said no, and the pitch is inside, so it is a gift ball, and the count is 1-1. The gift to Gibson, in as much as he had backed out, and had the pitch been over, it would have been a strike, and the count would have been 0-2.
I think the pitch was over, Al. I think Bill Deegan lost his concentration there when Gibson did.
Could have been. That's hit into the right field corner, and here are the Tigers on top again as Whitaker comes in to score on a double by Gibson. And the Tigers have been extremely potent in the first inning this season. 129 runs they scored during the regular season in the first. This is sort of typifies the way Detroit began the season, blowing teams out early.
Just not a very good pitch by Saberhagen. Gibson, of course, having a tremendous year, jumps on it. A lot of times you just kind of reach out for it and fly out, but he's hot, and we see the double down the right field line.
Well, quickly, we're back to the same storyline. They'd better shut the Tigers down quickly if they want to stay in this ball game, because you play a 7-inning game with either team. When you've got Hernandez and Quisenberry, and you're leading at the end of 7, it's curtains on balance.
Parrish is the batter, and the count is 1-0 on Lance, who in some ballparks would have hit 3 home runs last night. As it was, he settled for 1 and a sacrifice fly and a 400-foot out.
I told him, you're taunting us upstairs with warning track power. He says, what do you mean warning track power? My ballpark, I have 3.
Yeah. Several ballparks he has 3 last night. Fouled away, out of play. And the count is 2-1. Think about Parrish and Wrigley Field if they get there in the World Series.
You won't want to sit in the bleachers.
Yeah.
I know everybody likes to do it, but it may be dangerous.
Well, the Cubs 2-0. Tigers trying to go 2-0. Last time the Cubs were in the series in 45, they faced Detroit. And that's hit into right field for a base hit and maybe more. It will score Gibson. Parrish is being waved around first by Krasuski and into second with a double. And it's 2-0. The Tigers started the season with 9 straight wins. Then Saberhagen beat them. They were 35-5. As we look at the double again to make the score 2-0.
Not a particularly bad pitch up and in, but when you're as strong as Lance Parrish, you fight those balls off. A lot of guys that don't have the power to hit 33 home runs, they get jammed, they pop out to second baseman, or maybe even the first baseman. He just fought it off. Not a bad pitch, but it didn't turn out very well for Saberhagen.
As Evans stands in to finish the point, this is very much in the manner in which the Tigers got off to the start this season. If you go back and check the box scores and the line scores of those early games, they were scoring 5 and 6 runs in the first inning. They oftentimes were leading by scores of something like 7 or 8-1 by the fourth, and literally not only winning but just blowing people away early.
And those early season victories were recorded in the main against teams from the American League West.
The 2-1 pitch. Evans hits it in the air to shallow left field. Concepcion goes out, but Motley calls him off and makes the catch for the out. 2 down with Parrish still to second, and Rupert Jones is the batter.
Here's a guy who was notorious for going after the bad pitches, swinging at them, looking at the good ones. Now, after that stint we talked about that he served in the minor leagues, he's come back, and there is the graphic. It speaks for itself. He's been enormously effective, and he's been hitting the pitches that he should hit and taking the ones that he shouldn't.
I really feel when he played for the Mariners up in Seattle that he felt that he had to do a lot of it by himself, so therefore he's probably a little bit too aggressive. When he went to the Yankees, again, the expectation level was very high. You go to New York, you think you got to be a superstar. He fits perfectly into this lineup. And I can see from the first 2 pitches, they're trying to get him out inside. At least they established the inside corner. Now they're going away.
Ground ball speared by Saberhagen. And he gets out of the inning without any further damage. But as was the case last night, 2 runs, 2 hits, and a man left after a half. Tigers 2, Royals coming up.
Kansas City Royals leading off Willie Wilson. He's followed by Pat Sheridan, and then comes George Brett. After Brett, it's the dangerous hitting George Orta. After Orta, it's Darrell Motley, and the big smile from the guy who looks like No-Neck Williams. Then comes Steve Balboni, the striking out man and slugger. Then second baseman Frank White. After that, Don Slaught, the catcher, and winding it up, Onyx Concepcion, the shortstop. There you go, Mr. Michaels.
And defensively, as we look at the Tigers, they go tonight with Dave Bergman at first base. Evans was there last night, but he's moved over to third. There's Lou Whitaker at second. Great double play combination. Alan Trammell, those two both coming up as rookies in 1978. And Darrell Evans, the versatile one, at third. He started his career there with Atlanta. In the outfield, Rupert Jones is in left. He platoons with Larry Herndon. The everyday center fielder is Chet Lemon. And the everyday right fielder, Kirk Gibson, who played in more games than any other Tiger this season. Back of the plate, the American League's all-star catcher, Lance Parrish, with his 33 homers this year. And the pitcher is Dan Petry, who forms a very formidable 1-2 punch along with Morris. And this year, they're joined by Wilcox, who will start on Friday night for an outstanding 1-2-3 punch for Sparky Anderson all season long.
Leading off for the Royals, number 6, Willie Wilson.
Tigers on top, 2-0 as Willie Wilson starts things off. Wilson, Sheridan, and Brett. Petry with 18 victories this season. Mike Boddicker was the only 20-game winner in the American League. And Joaquin Andujar, the only man to win 20 in the National. Bert Blyleven and Jack Morris in the American each won 19. And then Petry and Frank Viola next with 18 wins. Foul tip. No balls and 1 strike on Wilson, to be followed by Sheridan and Bret.
Some think Petry is a stronger pitcher even than Morris.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, Howard, but he's an excellent pitcher. Won 19 games last year, 18 this year, and there you see another good fastball. Throws over 90 miles per hour, 94 to be exact. Probably has the best slider in the American League, and that's quite a statement, especially for a right-handed pitcher. Throws a occasional forkball and maybe an occasional curveball, but when he gets in trouble, and if he is going to be on tonight, you're going to see him with a good slider. I think something to say about Willie Wilson. And this statistic speaks for itself. 52 and 13 when he gets on base more than 2 times in a ball game. If the Royals want to get back in this game, wouldn't be a bad place to start with Willie.
Broken bat, the grounder to short, surrounded by Trammell, hurries his throw and still gets him. Now, we talked about Trammell last night and his shoulder injury and the fact that he's not throwing as well as he normally does, but still, and especially with Wilson here getting rid of it in a hurry, throw a little bit low, but in time to get him.
That's the best test he's had thus far. He says that on plays like this one, he doesn't even think about his arm, and that's what enables him to execute the way he just did.
Well, they really have a better defensive club tonight than they did last night. Bergman's better at first. Jones is better than left field. Evans is a good third baseman, probably more familiar over at third than he is at first. So if it's possible, after going 7-0 here at Royal Stadium, they have a better defensive club.
1-1 the count now on Pat Sheridan. Questioning the call.
Well, there's that high strikeout. And as we said last night, with the outside protector, and you can see it there on umpire Bill Deegan, you're going to get more high strikes than low ones.
2 balls and 1 strike the count. Umpiring no factor at all here last night, as was the case in Wrigley Field basically today. Earl Weaver summing it up when he said if you don't notice them, they're obviously doing a good job. 3-1 the count.
Or else the flow of play doesn't test it.
True. Bounce to the right side, and an easy play for Whitaker to take care of Sheridan, and that's the second out of the first inning as George Brett comes up. Brett this season was 3 for 4 against Petry, and 2 of those 3 hits were homers. First time since 1978 that George wound up the regular season under 300. And as all fans who follow the game know, on the disabled list through the middle of May with a knee injury, and then missed several games in August and September with a torn hamstring. 1-0 the count. At Kansas City during the regular season, the Tigers did not lose here. KC won 5 of 6 there and tack on the win last night, and the Tigers are 7-0 in this park in '84.
That's what we call last night the road field advantage.
Yeah.
I guess looking at those 2 statistics, this is kind of a must-win situation for the Tigers.
Yeah. A good way to put it.
They better win tonight or it's all over. I'm not sure that's really the case, but
I'm not either.
Red fouling it away.
I think a very valid point, again, going back, is Kansas City in this ballpark, and Al, you talked about how spacious it is. It's tough to hit home runs, especially for them, because Kansas City only has really 2 guys that I consider home run hitters, and that's Balboni and the man we're looking at right here, George Brett. And if you pitch Brett away in this ballpark, he's content with singling and doubling the left field.
Fly ball to shallow center field. It's Lemon coming charging in. Makes the catch to retire the side. Petry sets them down in order. We've played 1 full in game 2, and the Tigers lead Kansas City 2-0. Dick Hauser talking about tonight's pitcher, 20-year-old Bret Saberhagen.
Bret Saberhagen's a young guy. The only thing that people question was the fact that he was only 19 years old coming out of spring training. But I saw his stats in the minor league. When he went from A-ball to AA, his stats didn't drop off. I saw him in the instruction league. I liked him. I saw him in spring training. The thing that got my attention, the reason he's pitching the second game against Detroit, the last 2 times he's pitched against the California Angels, 16 consecutive scoreless innings, beat them here in Kansas City, 91 pitches in 9 innings, just completely dominated the California Angels. That's the reason he's pitching against Detroit, not the fact that he's 3-1 on the season.
Leading off for Detroit, number 30.
Go with a man who pitched well for you down the stretch.
The designated hitter.
And he did. Two masterpieces, really, against the Angels. Johnny Grubb, much traveled. Saber popped up into shallow center field. Willie Wilson takes charge, and on one pitch, Grubb is retired. One out in the second inning, and Chet Lemon comes up as they drop Lemon to number 8 in the order. Last night he hit 7th against the left-hander Bud Black. 287 during the regular year with 20 homers and 76 RBIs.
They sure do have the horses.
Well, they do, and I think the postscript to what Dick Hauser said about Saberhagen is that the Tigers are not the Angels. The Angels did not hit well the last 2 weeks of the season.
They didn't hit, period. Well, Reggie did.
Well, Reggie did not really hit that well either. He had a couple of games where he did hit some home runs.
Spun down to short, fielded by Concepcion, and he throws him out at first. Lemons had a habit of doing that, diving into the bag, which they tried to get him out of the habit of doing.
That's how he hurts his hands and wrists.
That ball really had a lot of spin on it. He hit it right down off the end of the bat. A little trickier than it looks.
Also one of those balls you don't get out of the box too well on. And as you said, Howard, it's not particularly a good play if you want to play the entire season. And I'm not really sure you get there any faster when you dive. Usually you got to slow down a little bit.
So 2 down, and Dave Bergman comes up, batting .273 during the regular year.
Certainly when you dive head first.
Oh, and 1 to count. Dave Bergman, he was the other man in the deal that they acquired from Philadelphia along with Willie Hernandez. Strike 2. Tigers sent Glenn Wilson and John Walkenfuss in that deal to Philadelphia. Actually, it was a 3-way deal because Bergman had left the Giants to go to Philadelphia as part of the transaction, with San Francisco getting a fellow by the name of Al Sanchez, who wound up as the player of the year in the Pacific Coast League. And a 1-2 pitch. Count remains a ball and 2 strikes with 2 out and the bases empty. Second inning on a beautiful night in Kansas City, and the Tigers on top 2-0. Tomorrow, Cubs go to San Diego with Eckersley and Whitson. Night game, 8 Eastern time. We're off tomorrow. Teams travel to Detroit. Game 3 at Tiger Stadium Friday night. Grounded toward the middle. White is there. Plants, throws, doesn't get him though. As Bergman legs it safely to first base. White might have thought he had a little more time than he actually did there.
Well, Bergman really got down the line now. One of those high choppers. Got a good jump out of the box. Looked like White threw it as quick as he can.
He was safe. That was a good call. And Bergman got down there faster than I thought he had the ability to do.
Well, he's like, again, we talked about the role players that the Tigers acquired. Good defensive player, home run threat, not maybe here in Kansas City, but definitely in Detroit with that short porch.
Here is Whitaker. Reached on an error in the first inning. 0-1 the count. They send the runner. The pitch is low and inside, and Slott's throw doesn't get him, as White had to worry about Bergman coming in, and Frankman a nice play just to save him from going into center field.
I think he may have pulled a hamstring, Al. You'll see, I think in this replay, that as he goes to first, you can see him kind of slow down.
Just getting underneath. Frank White making an acrobatic grab of the throw from Slott. And that's exactly where he's reaching for the right hamstring. Also the foot. Now actually he's trying to stretch it out.
It's one of those situations you don't know if you pulled a hamstring or you have a cramp. I hope it's a cramp because they go away a lot quicker than a pulled hamstring. One of those plays, it looks like if Frank White had been to the base, he got a little bit late in getting there. He might have had a chance to tag Bergman out. Then again, Bergman's not the type of guy that you expect to be running.
No, that's what took the surprise.
Tigers 106 steals this year, same number as Kansas City. Another look, and you can see it goes right underneath the tag as the throw is right in the neighborhood. But in an unpropitious spot, really, for Frank White to be able to make the tag.
Well, Well, Alex Grammis, third base coach, seems satisfied that Dave can gut it out.
Bergman stole 3 bases during the regular season. Was caught 4 times. Wrapped foul off to the left, and the count is 1 ball and 2 strikes on Whitaker. Charlie Lebrand is scheduled to start for KC on Friday against Milt Wilcox as we move to Tiger Stadium for Game 3. Friday night, 8 o'clock Eastern Time. 1 ball, 2 strikes to count. Quick breaking pitch, took something off it, had Whitaker out in front, and Saberhagen ends the second inning with his first strikeout. No runs, no 1 hit. And they leave Bergman at second after 1.5. Tigers 2, Royals nothing. His battery mate, Lance Parrish.
Dan Petry is a guy that I always knew all along would be an outstanding pitcher. He's had the ability. He's got probably the liveliest fastball on the ball club, a fastball that takes off in a number of directions. I really don't think in his mind he knows where it's going half the time, but it explodes. He's got a tremendous slider, which is probably his best pitch. He's just got a lot of confidence in himself right now, and he's never given up. He's given us an honest effort the whole season long, and consequently he's won 18 ball games.
He leads here 2-0, starting the bottom of the second, and George Orta takes outside, ball 1. Orta, Motley, and Balboni are the batters for the Royals in the bottom of the second inning. George Orta came over in a 1-for-1 deal with Toronto for Willie Aikens, fouling it away.
Got to remember that Petry is a little more than 6 feet 4 inches tall. Imposing figure out there, Jim.
Certainly is. Seeing a lot of small pitchers have great stuff, but they talk about leverage. The guy that's 6'4" certainly has it.
Grounding to third, struggled there by Evans, recovers, and still throws Orta out at first base. So Evans playing in about even with the bag and able to keep it in front of him, scooping it up, and Darrell with a good arm to get him.
Well, they talk about third base being a reflex position. On the turf, the ball sometimes comes back. It kind of went back towards his right foot, but he did keep it in front of you. He makes just a accurate throw to first with the out.
Darrell Motley went 0 for 4 last night. Strike. Motley last year was sent to the minors, and they had no room for him at the Royals AAA club in Omaha. So what they did is they sent him to Evansville, which is the Tiger Farm Club, on loan. It's a situation that's not particularly uncommon in baseball. Motley saying earlier this year he felt more like a Tiger really than a Royal after last season.
Well, as a lot of young players do, he just had a lot of holes. Chased the high fastball, the breaking ball in the dirt. This year he's been a little bit more disciplined, makes the pitcher throw strikes, and when he does, he has great natural ability.
Look at that graphic. They win with him in there. I don't know that he's the only reason, but it makes him look good.
2-2.
Well, I think some of the others that played left field were George Orta, who's never been known for his glove, mostly his bat. And there you saw that moving fastball that Lance Parrish talked about from Petry. When you go to hit it, it's in the middle of the plate. When you catch it, it's almost got your right ankle.
Popped up near second, and it's Whitaker putting it away. 5 straight set down by Petry. Last night, Morris started the game by retiring 7 straight. And at one point, Jack retired 10 in a row. Whitaker reaching on an error, then RBI doubles by Gibson and Parrish, providing the Tigers with their runs in the first inning. Right now we're in the bottom of the second inning. The error charged to Onyx Concepcion. Detroit on top, 2-0, as they were at this juncture last night. And Steve Balboni, 0-1. Dunn has Petry at 94 on that last pitch. Steve Balboni came over from the Yankees. Looks at a strike. Count 0-2. He's been their RBI man this season. 77 to lead the club, and 28 home runs to lead the club in his first ever real shot at making it. Dick Howser was telling Balboni in the spring, "You're my guy. You're going to get 500 at-bats this season."
Well, he didn't quite get that many, but...
Well, that was because of injuries.
Exactly. Up about 450 times, 139 strikeouts, but a lot of home runs, and that's what they want.
What Howser was telling him is that, don't worry about it. I'm going to stick with you. You're not going to be platoon. You're going to get your shot, finally.
Well, that's a common thread that runs between Dick Howser and Sparky Anderson. The players that play for both these managers know that they have confidence in their players.
Breaking pitch got him swinging. And the out will be officially recorded at first base after Parrish drops it. Replay 2, still Detroit 2, Kansas City nothing.
Royals are currently struggling. Yankee owner George Steinbrenner said on my Sports Beat show they would have finished 6th in the East, shouldn't be here. Here was George Brett's retort when I told him.
Well, if George was smart enough to buy the Royals instead of the Yankees, he would have been in the playoffs this year. But he wanted to buy the Yankees instead of the Royals, so that's why they're not in the playoffs. Each division has to have a representative, and we're very thankful that I guess this year that we weren't in the American League East, because we would be in 6th place. And anything can happen in a 3 out of 5 series. I remember in 1977 we won 102 games, lost 60. The best record in all of baseball. We lost to the Yankees in the playoffs. So if we go out and play to our capabilities, our potential, we can win it, and just hopefully we will.
Well put by Brett, whose team is in a hole right now, though. Down 1 game to nothing and down 2-0 in the score here in game 2 as we start the 3rd, and Alan Trammell takes a strike. Trammell, perfect night last night. Single, triple, homer, 2 walks. Fly to center in the 1st inning today. 1 ball, 1 strike. Well, Willie Aikens, longtime first baseman here, traded to Toronto for Orta with the Blue Jays this year, but back home in Kansas City and watching his ex-mates.
Had a terrible year with the Jays. I find it interesting that he'd be here tonight.
The one thing that's impressed me about Saberhagen, that you notice, as we said, excellent control. Tigers score 2 runs. It hasn't altered his game plan. He's still throwing strikes.
Broken bat bouncer to Balboni. Over to Saberhagen covering. 1 away here in the 3rd inning. Batter will be Kirk Gibson. You know, Steinbrenner talking about where the Royals would have finished and the retort from Brett. Everything is so relative in baseball. Last year, as you look at the Tigers when they score the 1st run, how dominant they've been. Last year, Kansas City finished 2nd, but they finished 20 games back of the White Sox. So it was a bad year. They won 79 games. You realize as Gibson fouls it away, they only won 5 more games this year than they did last. But here they are in the playoffs. They won 84 in 1984.
Matter of geography.
Yep.
But I do think an interesting thing about the way the American League is set up, you play more games outside your division than you do inside. Kansas City played a tougher schedule than the 6 teams that finished ahead of them in the American League East. They had to play 84 of their games against the East, while the American League East teams only had to play 78 games against the East. Figure out why that happens, I don't know, but that's the way it is.
Matter for you to rectify in your forthcoming role as assistant to the commissioner.
I will get the umpires back on the field, Howard. I know that'll make you happy.
2-1 pitch. Now 3-1 on Gibson. Will be followed by Parrish.
Well, I thought Earl asked a rather good question today. Why do we have 6 here? And I asked Bobby Brown, American League president, last night, you'll recollect, and the National League still had only 4 today.
Foul back.
What's your position on that?
I don't know. I would say that, did Chubb Feeney go to medical school? I don't really know. I don't think.
If you really want to know, he went to Columbia High School in South Orange, New Jersey, and matriculated at Dartmouth College in the hills of Hanover.
Well, then they ought to have 6 umpires.
That's right.
Foul back, and it's still 3 balls and 2 strikes on Gibson.
I really don't think it takes a whole lot of acumen to call balls fair and foul, and that's what the 5th and 6th umpires usually do. It just seems that when you consider the past history, where they usually do have 6 umpires in the playoffs and the World Series, it's a little bit of an oversight not to happen.
To deep center field, and all the way back goes Wilson. That ball is gone.
That's Gibson, and has he coming along. And because of the way Sparky talked about him, and because of the way Gibson talked with us, that's exactly why we elected at the advent of this telecast to show his play of the game last night and talk about his improvement. He is coming into his own.
Kirk Gibson, 27 during the regular season. He has doubled and homered tonight. He had 2 hits last night in addition to the defensive play. And the Tigers are on top 3-0.
And we see a fastball in the middle of the plate. Sparky kind of alluded to the fact that he once compared him to Mickey Mantle. And we see one of his abilities to hit the ball as far as Mickey Mantle, just about.
That ball was belted. That one would impress even Reggie Giroux.
1-1 pitch. 1-2. Reggie Smith.
Oh, you're looking for it tonight, Alfalfa.
Well, they won't. They both went to the same college.
That's right. So did you. 1-2 pitch. The deep right field. But fading and having room is Sheridan, certainly to make the catch. So with 2 down, that sort of sums up the reaction of some of the Kansas City fans at this particular point. Team surprising everybody by getting into the playoffs to begin with, but routed last night by the Tigers, and this has those same makings tonight, at least at the outset.
We keep giving Darryl a San Francisco routine.
I don't know why. He still lives in the Bay Area, as the organist salutes him with "I left my heart in San Francisco," which he didn't, since he played out his option and was signed by the Tigers. 1-0 the count. Darryl Evans, been around a long time. Came up with the Braves in '69. He was eligible for the playoffs in '69 between the Braves and the Mets, but never got into a game. As he rips it to right field, Sheridan does a 360 but makes the catch. So Saberhagen is not fooling anybody. He gets out of the inning after the home run by Gibson. That's all, but still it's Detroit 3, Kansas City nothing after 2.5. To deep center field, and all the way back goes Wilson. That ball is gone.
That's Gibson, and has he coming along.
Here's Kirk talking about his future.
My potential is, but I just know there's a lot of room for improvement in a lot of areas, and there's a lot of good people around me. Sparky's helped me tremendously. When I came into this game professionally, I did not know the game of baseball. I didn't know when to bunt, when to steal. I didn't know how to field the ball or how to throw it, and I've got the mechanics down now, so mechanically I'm a lot more sound than I used to be.
Kirk Gibson, 4 hits already in the playoffs as we go to the bottom of the 3rd inning. Tigers on top 3-0. Obviously the hamstring pulled, bothering Dave Bergman. He has come out of the game as we start the bottom of the 3rd inning, and Frank White to lead off against Dan Petry, who's retired the first 6, and it's a strike. There's Tommy Brookins now playing 3rd, and what they've done is take Darryl Evans from 3rd, moved him over to 1st. Brookins bats in Bergman's spot, number 9 in the order. Bergman getting injured on the stolen base in the 2nd inning, sliding under the tag of that man, Frank White, with a career-high 17 homers this year. 1-2. White, Slaught, and Concepcion. The bottom part of the Royals order was a key to their September success. You look at the numbers when you get 7, 8, 9 guys, White, Slaught, and Concepcion hitting 271, 264, 282 for the season. That's not too bad.
Well, I think if you came in and you were going to scout the Royals, what were you going to do? You're going to pitch to Bret and Balboni, or are you going to pitch to the end of the order? If you go back to last year's World Series, why did the Orioles do so well? The Three Stooges, as they were called, had a great series.
That's right. Dempsey, the MVP.
I mean, you're playing percentages. If you want
Suddenly
Brett to
hitting
beat
home
you,
runs.
or do you want a guy like Slot?
1 ball, 2 strikes to count on Frank White.
That was a great team of role players who didn't role play this year.
Well, when you usually look at a team as successful as the Orioles were last year, you have almost everybody having career years. The Tigers are no exception. They have a lot of guys that are having outstanding years. Guys they didn't maybe expect to have as good a years as they did. What's a little bit scary, as we talked about last night, Larry Herndon, who they expected 20 home runs and drive in 90 runs, didn't have a good year. What happens if he has a good one next year?
Yeah. Foul back. And it's 2-2. The Tigers, you're right. Sometimes the numbers can be a little deceiving. When you look at all of their numbers together, not thrillingly impressive. Only Trammell hit over 300. Gibson was the only man with more than 20 steals. But as Jim said, some of the guys did have career years. You can make a case almost for Lemon having one. Wilcox, the pitcher, best of his career, and it's been a long one for Milt. As White strikes out on an off-speed pitch.
Well, that was really the second curveball that Petry's thrown. Got ahead in the count. And a good curveball. You can see the break. White swings right through it.
Well, I realize it's only the middle of the 3rd inning, but we've talked about how hard it is. Once the Tigers get a lead, Kansas City, that have any chance, simply must get something going. And Petry doesn't look as if he's going to give in to any degree. He really seems to have everything tonight.
Well, he does, but when you come to Royal Stadium, and as a member of the Orioles for many years playing here, the way Kansas City gets back into the game is by taking the extra base, hitting the ball to the opposite field. That's easy to do against a team that doesn't have a lot of foot speed. The Tigers are probably quicker and a better defensive club than the team they're playing, the Royals. So they're going to have to maybe hit a home run from somebody you don't expect one from.
0-1 the count on Don Slaught. So it's a weak ground ball to second. Whitaker throws him out. Petry has started the game by retiring 8 straight. And Onyx Concepcion comes up. As you look at college football, Nebraska, Oklahoma State, Georgia, Alabama are our games. And October 13th, a week from Saturday, Oklahoma against Texas, 3:30 Eastern Time, CFA college football. Last time Onyx Concepcion faced Dan Petry, on August 10th, he was hit by a pitch and broke his hand. Then he got back into the lineup in September and played very well down the stretch. Grounded to short. Trammell throws out Concepcion, and that's 3 perfect innings for Petry, and the Tigers are rolling along. At the end of 3 full, it's Detroit 3, Kansas City nothing in game 2. Tigers on top 3-0 as we go to the top of the 4th inning in game 2. Big man for Detroit tonight has been Kirk Gibson. First inning with Whitaker on and 1 out. This double down the right field line made the score 1-0 as Whitaker comes in. And Gibson would subsequently score on Parrish's double. And then in the 3rd inning, with the score 2-0 Tigers, Kirk Gibson ripping a pitch from Saberhagen over the fence in center near the 4:10 marker. And that's where we stand right now. 3-0 with Jones to lead off in the 4th inning. Rupert Jones grounded out in the 1st. Fouled away. 1-2 on Jones.
Hard pitch.
Good running fastball. Rupert Jones, as you said before, Al, great natural ability, but he has a big swing. I actually think he's a better breaking ball hitter than he is a fastball hitter. If you get the ball away or you get it inside, he has trouble catching up.
Here's a breaking pitch, and he takes it for called strike 3.
Just gets completely fooled, can't even pull the trigger.
Johnny Grubb, you called him much traveled out. Indeed. A number of seasons he got off to a big start. Good enough when he was with San Diego to be named as that team's representative to the All-Star team.
San Diego, Cleveland, Texas, and now Detroit's case of When Grubb first came up, it looked like he would be San Diego's longtime center fielder. Hitting 300, grounding it down to short. And Concepcion throws him out. So 2 down as Saberhagen has retired 4 in a row and 6 of the last 7. Grubb platooned as the DH.
Center fielder.
2 of the 4 that he retired, Parrish and Evans, really belted the ball.
Yep.
Line shots to deep right, you'll remember.
That following the home run by Gibson. Lemon grounded out in the 2nd inning. 1-0 the count. Stadium, Kansas City, where it's 3-0 Tigers. Whitaker reaching on Concepcion's error. Gibson and Parrish with doubles to make it 2-0. Gibson with a home run in the 3rd inning to make it 3-0. And the Royals have gone down with nary a whimper facing Dan Petry.
If they're going to do something, Al, this is the inning. After all, they begin with Wilson. Then they have a seemingly tired Pat Sheridan. Tall kid, but frail of body, and I think he tired in September. Don't you, Jim?
Well, he slumped the entire month. Has a big swing. Kind of a slight body frame, as you said, and you have a big swing and you're tired, you don't get the bat into the hitting zone.
But after Sheridan, we have Bret.
Willie Wilson, switch hitter, grounded out in the 1st inning. Royals have hit only 1 ball out of the infield. That was an easy fly ball by Bret in the 1st.
Well, what Wilson does if he gets on presents the stealing possibility, and he changes the tempo that Petry's been able to avoid, which is to have to hurry, change his repertoire. You kind of hope when you're facing a guy like Petry that he's going to be nervous, and he's going to throw balls, and he's not going to be able to get his pitches over. But he's overmatched him. Totally overmatched.
Petry be nervous? He's won 37 games in 2 years. 19 last year, 18 this year.
Well, the only reason I say you might be nervous is that when you're a pitcher, what causes you to be apprehensive that every time you go out to the mound, you don't know how you're going to be. You don't know if you're going to have good stuff. You don't know if you're going to have...
Like a fighter going into the ring. How will it be?
Well, I've never fought, but I have pitched, and I know that you just don't know what you're going to have.
1-2 delivery is ripped on a line, but caught by Evans at first base. So the best hit ball of the night turns into the 10th consecutive out.
It's the way it goes. The boys in Chicago were saying today everything's going the Cubbies' way.
It's one of those balls. It's a sure double, possibly a triple if it gets to the wall the way Wilson can run. But he's sitting in the dugout right now. 1 out here in the 4th.
Pat Sheridan is the batter. He grounded out in the 1st inning, and he's 0 for 3 in the 2 nights. Ball 1. We've been consistently clocking Petry in the low to mid 90 range tonight. 2 balls, no strikes to count. Two and 1.
Never fought, eh? Never fought.
Well, if he takes that pitch, it's probably ball 3.
Especially down 3-0, trying to get somebody on base.
Well, there's a fine line, though, Al. If you're managing, you don't want your club not to be aggressive. Then again, when you talk about Pat Sheridan, you're not talking about a guy that has a lot of experience. If you make that pitch to a guy that's been around a few years, and as I said last night, when Bret's hitting well, he doesn't swing at that pitch. When he's in a slump or he's struggling, he does.
Next pitch is fouled back in the count 3-2.
If I'm hitting in front of George Brett, I want to get on. So maybe 2-0. You've been around a few years. You take that pitch and it's 3-0, or at least maybe you let the umpire help you out a little bit.
And he works his way aboard. So Sheridan draws the walk, and the Royals finally have something to get excited about. At least the fans do, as they come to life on ball 4 to Sheridan, first base runner for KC. Bret 0 for 4 last night, 0 for 1 tonight. We mentioned before 2 homers off Petry this season, 3 in his career.
If past is prologue, this is the spot.
Well, the way I interpret that 500 average is that Petry doesn't make very many good pitches to Bret. He's probably getting the ball in the middle of the plate, and when you do that to a guy like George, he's going to hit the ball not only hard, but sometimes a long distance.
Sheridan at first base. Pitch is ripped to right center field, in for a base hit, maybe more. Lennon cuts it off feet. Bret will hold at first with a single as Sheridan goes to third. For a walk and a base hit, what a beautiful swing. I just love to watch Bret in slow motion.
One of the sweet swingers in all of baseball.
This is how you hit 390 one year. Hit the ball where it's pitched. Petry got a fastball in the middle of the plate, and he just ripped it into right center field.
A lot of class in that kid, too.
A walk and a single, and all of a sudden, the Royals are trying to get back in it as they trail 3-0, and Orta, the batter, grounded out in the second inning. Tiger infield, back, double play depth. They lead 3-0, so that's the obvious alignment in this situation. One and oh the count. Orta hit .298 during the regular season, 9 home runs. 50 runs batted in. Ground ball toward Whitaker, steps on second, 1 to first, not in time. So Orta's able to leg it out as Sheridan scores. And on the first and second, the Royals get a run to make it 3-1.
Pretty good piece of hitting. There you see that fastball running away, just pounds it into the dirt. Now it's a foot race. There you see he just beats it by about a step.
Well, he butcher boyed a bad pitch again into the ground. And Whitaker had a bit of a break on AstroTurf. That ball could have bounded over his head.
Here is Motley. Drive base hit into center field as Orta pulls in at second. So in the inning, the line drive out and a walk, single, force play to score a run, and a line single here.
A Balboni home run would cause this place to erupt.
It's erupting right now. Mentioned that the Royals had gone down without a whimper in the first 3 innings. Nothing even remotely resembles a hit. And here in the 4th inning, second time around through the order as Balboni comes up, and what for him has been a propitious position this season. Runners in scoring position, 2 out. Then a different story facing Petry the second time through the order.
Well, again, he's not making good pitches. I always felt this is the type of guy I like to have come up in this situation because he's an easy guy to strike out. 139 on the year certainly indicates that.
Got jammed and hits it foul back out of play.
Another thing he does as far as helping out a pitcher, that he swings a lot of bad pitches.
He just did.
He's going to help you out. I mean, he's not the type of guy that's going up there to walk. As we said earlier, Dick Hauser doesn't want that. You put a Steve Balboni's name down in the lineup, you think of Earl Weaver, you think of the 3-run home run.
Balboni with 28 home runs during the regular year. 2 on with 2 out. Didn't help out that time as he laid off the pitcher inside, and it's 1-1.
He gets a pitch, they can hit it anyway. Ballpark not an issue with him.
1-2. To be a slider to end the bottom of the fourth inning. So Balboni strikes out for the second time in the game. He is still hitless in the championship series.
Well, you're right, Al. Low and away slider. As I said, he can't strike out. Petry made one of the few good pitches he made that inning for the strikeout.
3-1 Tigers. Hauser on the left, Anderson on the right.
Well, master of classic literature, Lawrence Berra. Don't forget, Monday Night Football. 49ers unbeaten. Joe Montana again hitting his pet White Clark against the Giants, who began swimmingly. 3 victories and came a cropper against the Redskins and against the Rams, but with the capacity to strike back.
Fifth inning as Tommy Brookins leads off with a fly ball to right field on his first at-bat. He's inserted into Bergman's spot in the order, with Dave going out with the hamstring pull. 1 pitch and 1 out, and Saberhagen has retired 6 in a row and 8 of the last 9 after a shaky start as Whitaker comes up.
And that's what's given this team a lift. Saberhagen pitching now the way Hauser had hoped he'd pitch from the very start of the game. Increasing confidence, you can see it in him. Just the way Palmer was when he faced Yount. The final game of the '82 season, and Yount hit him for consecutive home runs.
Oh, what an afternoon! And you were there.
Yeah.
No balls, 2 strikes to count.
So never let me forget about it.
I've seen a lot of home run balls that used it. Dick Hauser, Royals manager, may have been his last home run in the big leagues. Would you believe?
May have been his first, too. First and last.
And he was bailing out. There are the H's. Joe Bush back in 1913 for the Giants.
You have lunch with him today?
In 1913, I
took something off it. He's got a good change, and Whitaker strikes out. He was out in front.
This kid's giving him a big lift now. Twice he's gotten Whitaker on strikes.
Same pitch, too. Got ahead of him. Threw him a curveball last time, and he swung right through it. Here we see the slow-mo from behind home plate. Part of pitching is changing speeds. You can just see the bat go right over that curveball.
Allen Trammell. 1-0 the count. Perfect night last night, but tonight he's 0 for 2, flying to center and grounded to first. 2 out and the base is empty. Where was that one? It was 93 miles an hour. And
kid is really winging it now.
To the crowd, it appeared to be a strike, but not to Bill Deacon. That's in there, just about the same spot, too. 2-1.
You know, we talked about his youth and also about his self-possession. I think he's holding together very well in terms of his composure.
Well, that he is, then I don't think he'd be pitching here, as Dick Hauser said, if he did not have that poise. He throws strikes. You don't see many young pitchers that come up and can throw strikes. That's the hardest thing a young pitcher with a good arm has to learn. I think of Wally Bunker back in '64. I think of Storm Davis with the Orioles. Not too many guys can throw a lot of strikes.
Looped into right field for a base hit. Trammell takes the wide turn and then falls down. Trammell was thinking about going to second, perhaps, but that ended in a hurry as he hit the bag and went down.
He was thinking all right. He was going if this mishap hadn't occurred. However, Allen has his first hit of the evening.
And hit number 5 off Saberhagen as Gibson comes to the plate. With a double and a home run, he has scored twice, driven in 2, and he is 4 for 7 in the championship series. That ball gets by Balboni, and down to second goes Trammell. Trammell stumbling after he made that turn and went down, and Trammell, who's been bothered with shoulder problems and last year elbow problems, now he's waving the trainer off, saying he's okay. Hit him right
on the thigh. That's what's bothering.
Well, I said Balboni last night was good on the balls in the dirt. He's just not too good on the ones waist high. There he just reaches for the ball. It's kind of into the runner.
And Trammell is it.
Maybe that's the way to get him out of the game.
Up high. 1 ball, no strikes on Gibson. First base open here.
Well, pitch carefully to him.
Right, we're going to pitch around the guy that's only hit 28 home runs to pitch to the guy that's got 34.
33 home runs.
30, well, counting last night, 34. It's one of those gambles because of the percentage of lefty-righty. But I think it's only fair to point out, as we see a fastball on the inside, good pitch, kind of pitch you have to make when you get behind Kirk Gibson. If you lose that gamble, the score's going to be 6-1.
1-1 pitch.
Don't forget, it's a 3-run home run for Earl.
Well, Earl would be happy, but there are points in ball games where you have to make that gamble. I don't really think the way this game is going, even though the Royals did show some interest in getting back in the game, that he can afford to give up another run.
3 balls and 1 strike the count. 3 runs, 5 hits, and no errors for the Tigers. 1 run, 2 hits, and 2 errors for the Royals. As Gibson takes ball 4. So Kirk draws the walk, gets aboard for the 3rd time tonight, and up comes Parrish, who has doubled and fly to right.
And you were right about it. We can put an asterisk by that walk. That was a semi-intentional walk.
Certainly was.
But it's a gamble, and we'll just kind of wait and see what happens.
Lance Parrish led the Tigers in home runs the last 5 seasons. Something last accomplished by Harry Heilman in Detroit in the early 20s.
It was looking great. Then, as so often happens, blue hit into right field by Trammell. The walk and trouble. The Aaron pickoff effort.
Breaking ball, that just misses.
That might have been a bad call.
And a couple of questionable ones in the inning.
But you have them when the great pros are here, too.
You better believe it.
I think the umpire in Chicago made a pretty good point in the paper this morning where he said if he only missed 3 pitches, which is what he felt, he had a pretty good day or night. If you miss over 7, you had a bad one.
1 ball and 2 strikes the count now on Parrish.
Even in your career, there were occasions when umpires became a nettlesome factor.
Missed it at that time. 1 ball, 1 strike.
I love them, not too often. I'm kind of like Earl. Once you get up in the booth, you love all the umpires.
One-two pitch. Outside. So 2-2 now with 2 men out and 2 men on, and the Tigers on top by 2. Trammell is at second. Gibson, outstanding speed at first.
Obviously, the crisis point right now for the Royals in this game.
Very big pitcher.
Or Detroit runs.
Foul away.
Or Detroit runs and could be Curtis. Where's Hernandez? Have you spoken to him?
He doesn't go out to the bullpen until the 7th inning.
That's correct.
Something that when I first started with the Orioles, Stu Miller used to lie in the clubhouse until about the 6th.
And he strikes him out. Good fastball. Nice bit of clutch pitching by 20-year-old Bret Saberhagen. Challenged him and got him. And in the inning, no runs, 1 hit, 1 error, and 2 men left on. After 4.5, Detroit still leading Kansas City 3-1. Tiger Stadium, first postseason action there since 1972. Charlie Leibrandt on the mound for Kansas City, and Milt Wilcox off his finest year, 17-8, working for Detroit. Will be on the air at 8 o'clock Eastern time.
What a cute kid.
That's George Toma holding that baby,
the nation's
groundskeeper.
leading groundskeeper, the man who drove Catfish Hunter wild.
I love it.
Doctor the mound, and Catfish would always say to me, I don't know what he's doing now, but somehow it doesn't feel right. He wound up.
The nation's leading groundskeeper, and all he has to work with is artificial turf here.
Let me tell you, came out to the Olympics, worked over the Rose Bowl.
Here's Frank White fouling it away.
And the International Federation, soccer people said it was the second best soccer field in the world. And this after he had worked on it for only a couple of weeks.
Well, they brought Toma out to do the manicuring for some Super Bowls.
He's terrific.
He is. Takes care of Arrowhead Stadium, which is right behind us. The two stadiums side by side here in the Truman Sports Complex. White lost it towards shallow right, but Whitaker is there as one second baseman, takes care of the other for the first out in the bottom of the 5th inning.
Hauser says he's got nothing to do here, that basically he's just a painter painting the walls.
Well, you know, they're going to lay down a new artificial surface here next year. This is the original
They had
surface.
talked about going back to natural grass, which would have been great.
Well, a couple of factors figured in. It would have been more expensive, they tell me, to put the grass back in.
That's a fact.
It rains a lot.
$1.8 million.
It costs you some rainouts, right? And also, in talking to some of the Royals people, they have felt that they've drafted players contingent upon playing on an AstroTurf surface or an artificial surface, and as a consequence, that's one of the reasons that also came to bear when they decided to go with the artificial turf next year as opposed to grass. Ground ball to the right side. 2 down.
Did you play on natural turf, or was it an artificial surface?
Where?
At the intersection of the Santa Monica Freeway exit and Robertson Boulevard.
At Hamilton?
Yes.
Pure grass. Now, what about, you went to Hamilton High School in Brooklyn?
In
the corner
Brooklyn.
of what, Albany Avenue and Avenue D?
Albany Avenue and Bergen Street. They closed it down. It's closed.
Onyx Concepcion at the plate. 1 ball and 1 strike to count. Again, mentioned it last night. No relation to David of the Reds. Been backing up UL Washington here for a couple of years, but as of now, he is the shortstop. Even though Dick Hauser, because of injuries, had to shuffle 6 different guys in there, including Bucky Dent this season. Grounded to third. It's a fair ball, and then the throw gets by Evans, and down to second base goes Concepcion. Crowd is booing, but with the ball in front of the bag until the ball reaches third, the call is the home plate umpire's call, and thus Deegan, even though he was further from the play, is the man who makes this call. So Deegan calls it fair as Brookins throws the ball away. And the Royals with a man at second and 2 down.
Probably the toughest play a third baseman has to make in baseball. Of course, if you came up with the Orioles and you watched Brooks Robinson, you certainly wouldn't think that. The master of that play.
Batter is Willie Wilson. We'll get the scoring in a moment. Up high, 1-0.
A hit now, and we've got the scrappy Kansas City Ball Club that took over in the latter part of the season.
Well, a hit now is, if it's a single, it's just like throwing a double. Because Wilson will steal second, and you'll be in a tie game situation.
Brookins charged with an error all the way, and the pitch is up and away. 2-0 on Willie Wilson. Willie drew a career-high 39 walks this season. He's not your prototypical leadoff man, even though he's a good one, in the sense that he doesn't walk very much. Was it a couple of years ago, somebody said to Willie, why don't you walk more than you do? You're leading off. Said I wanted to walk. I'd have been a mailman.
Okay.
2-1. And it's 2 balls and 2 strikes now. Strike 3 on the inside corner, and Willie is furious.
Well, he's furious, Al, but that was a good pitch. I think the instant replay we'll probably see will show that.
I think you're exactly right, and that's the easy thing to do. Watch this.
What happened?
Inside corner.
Well, you talked
just
about that
above the knee.
Moving fastball went right back over the plate.
3-1. We'll be back after this from your local stations. Evans, Jones, Grubb will come up as we go to the 6th inning. Here it was today in Chicago, where the Cubs won game 1, 13-0. They came back, won game 2, 4-2. Trout and Smith combining for the victory, and they're moving west as we speak. Tomorrow night, game 3, Cubs against San Diego. Chicago 1 victory away from wrapping it up. Meanwhile, the Tigers, with a win in hand, lead here 3-1. Evans fly to left and fly to right. 2 for 6 in the series thus far. Bret Saberhagen.
Got to keep them this close. Can't give up another run. It's that simple.
The crowd is all over Bill Deegan, the plate umpire. They booed him.
That's such an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
One would think they were positioned to see the pitch, make a judgment.
Foul down the right field line, and the count is 1-1.
Cookie Rojas, for many years, one of the fine infielders that Kansas City had.
Very versatile ball player.
Loved the high fastball.
That's right. Originally a Branch Rickey discovery.
Used to coach here. He was a coach on several of their Western Division Championship clubs. Fly ball to right field, and for the 3rd time tonight, Evans has flied out as Sheridan puts this one away. Another look at the pitch to Wilson. Very little doubt as the crowd's really on Deegan. They were on him the entire time during the changeover. Strike in anybody's book, though, right there. But a reaction like that will always incite the fans. There's little doubt about that. Not that many people sit back at the plate from the upper deck down the right field line where Euchre normally sits. It's a little difficult to see where that pitch was. Strike to Jones.
Euchre was very touched when Milwaukee gave him that permanent chair. You heard about that?
Yes.
Yeah, we discussed it, didn't we, last night?
There.
But
he missed the tag somewhere in that area. 0-2 the count.
Bob's a red-hot personality these days, and I love it. He deserves it. Great person. Spent the weekend with him at Malibu. A lot of fun. Only thing we...
what are you, sights dropping now, or what?
Yep.
Still 0. What were you doing in Malibu?
I was using Euchre as my commissioner. The Battle of the Network Stars. Sports writer once called it trash sports, thus giving sacred nature to falsified transcripts, Mickey Mouse courses, and under-the-table payments. College football. Big time.
0-2 pitch. Shatters his bat. It's a fly ball to center field. 2 down. Howard, I just wish you were a little bit more opinionated.
What'd you say?
There's Charlie Leibrandt in the Kansas City dugout. He'll be the pitcher on Friday.
Keeping
one
the
pitcher
chart.
right next to him, Bud Black, keeping the chart.
Bud saying, leaning over, saying, don't throw the ball in the middle of the plate to Trammell or Parrish.
Johnny Grubb takes a strike, and the count is 0-1.
Key here is, for the hope of a royal resurgence, this kid is keeping them in the game.
He's doing exactly what he's supposed to do. Maybe a play or two early in the ball game, it might be a little bit closer, but he certainly not letting the game get out of hand, and that's what you want to do as a starting pitcher. Keep it under control.
High fly ball to right field, deep but playable, and back goes Sheridan, making the catch. And so Saberhagen has done the job here in the 6th inning.
Certainly has.
Tigers are gone in order. Royals coming up. It'll be Sheridan, Brett, and Orta in the bottom of the 6th. 3-1, Detroit.
You know, one of the best things about being an ex-big leaguer is getting freebies to the game. Call the front office, bingo. And once these fans recognize me, I probably won't even have to pay for my light beer from Miller. Down it, I love them. These fans know I drink light because it's less filling and it tastes great. Good seats, huh?
You're in the wrong seat, buddy. Come on.
Oh, I must be in the front row.
Come on.
Light beer from Miller. Everything you always wanted in a beer, and less.
Good seats, hey, buddy. He missed the tag. He missed the tag.
Down the stretch because of that torn hamstring. And he talks about his current physical condition.
I don't think I'm going to be 100% until about 3 weeks after baseball season. Hopefully that's the middle of November. I came back a little too soon. I started pinch hitting a couple times, and I think every time I pinch hit during the regular season, I aggravate a little bit, and it never really gave it a chance to heal. And then I started playing. I played about the last 3 weeks of the season. And as long as I still try to run and still try to move a little bit, every once in a while I sting it or I just injure it a little bit more. But when it comes time for the playoffs, I think I'll be feeling a lot better tomorrow night than I did last week. I'll probably be able to run a little bit faster. Hopefully I'll have a little more range at third base. And just hopefully I'll be able to go out and contribute a little bit more than I did this season, because I really didn't carry my weight at all.
Bret talking on Monday about the then upcoming championship series. He is up second in the inning as we go to the bottom of the sixth. Pretty key inning here for Kansas City. Down by 2 because if Petry gets out of this one, you're thinking about Hernandez and company. I say in company because they also have Aurelio Lopez as well. As Sparky's got to go to the pen, and the Royals have the 2, 3, and 4 hitters here. Good fastball on the count is 1-2. There's Saberhagen.
20 years, 5 months. What a wonderful time of life. How old are you now, Jeff?
To left field. And it's Jones moving over and making the catch as he comes toward the line to take care of Sheridan for the first out. So now Bret will come up with the bases empty. 1 out in the 6th inning. Bret is flied to center and singled.
Tell the truth. Do you really want to pitch again, Jim?
I don't know.
Stop hedging.
Up high, 1-0.
This might be the place to come back. In this ballpark, you could win 30, 25, certainly.
I couldn't win 30 when I had all my abilities.
1-1. You know Jim's not coming back, Howard. He's a full-fledged member of the Jockocracy right now. That's Mark
Gubicza on the left.
And Larry Gurra.
And Larry Gurra on the right.
Gubicza is scheduled to pitch in a 4th game, if there is a 4th game. So those guys are just down there getting in some work. Grounded to second. Whitaker throws Bret out for the 2nd out. Gurra's kind of been one of the forgotten men. Gurra started the season in the rotation and pitched only once in the last 4 weeks of the year. Talked about it last night with the Royals as you look at Larry in the bullpen. Tremendous transition. Dennis Leonard has missed all of this year and most of last with injuries. Paul Splittorff retired. Vida Blue was released. Gurra is now out of the rotation. Complete revampment.
I was talking to John Sherholtz about Dennis Leonard. They still have fond hopes that he'll come back next year. Probably not until maybe May or June.
Ortiz slapping it foul.
Certainly one of the dominant pitchers in the American League when he's healthy. In fact, he was pitching against Baltimore when he tore that tendon, I think, in his left knee. Had it repaired, got an infection in it. With his talent, you like to see that guy, back in baseball.
Nice man. 0-1 pitch is a strike on the outside corner, and the count is 0-2. Ground ball to the right side, and that's that as Whitaker throws him out. So the 2, 3, and 4 hitters go down in order. On to the 7th we go, with the Tigers leading the Royals 3-1 in Game 2. Things off after a fine season. Lemon at Detroit was asked by Howard the other day if he's ever played for a better team than the '84 Tigers.
Not really, Howard. I think last year we had a great ball club, and I think that we played well enough to win our division. But Baltimore played great baseball last year, and they were the world champions. But this year, with the acquisition of Darrell Evans and Willie Hernandez, I think we strengthened our ball club even more. And for certainty, I have to say that this is the most complete ball club that I've ever played on. And they gel real well as a ball club, as a team, and we just go out every day and we bear down and do the very best that we can. Win, lose, or draw, the guys come off the field, and the next day you would never know whether we won 10 in a row or if we lost a couple in a row. So I think that for certainty, with attitude and personnel, this has to be the best ball club I've ever been on.
Pretty well stated.
Lemon 0 for 2 tonight. Tigers on top, 3-1, 7th inning. 1 ball and 1 strike to count. Lemon, then Brookins, and then the top of the order, Whitaker in the 7th.
Who's that? Doug Bear in the Tiger bullpen? Time to send Hernandez out there. Basically, based upon the history of this season, Kansas City has really only 3 outs left if they put Hernandez in.
1-2 the count. Tigers with 2 in the 1st and 1 in the 3rd, and the Royals got their run in the bottom of the 4th.
What's your prediction for this game, Jim?
Kansas City. But since the Tigers are 87-0 going in the 9th with a lead, they better do it before then.
It's 88-0 now.
Yes.
Half swing, bounces to 3rd. It's Bret ranging to his left and throwing out Lemon. 1 gone here in the top of the 7th inning. And we'll take a look at Tommy Brookins. Tigers have really never settled their 3rd base spot all season long, but it hasn't hurt. Brookins has been there. Sparky contends that Howard Johnson is his guy for next season. He had Marty Castillo starting there last night. He had Evans starting there tonight.
But you kind of get the feeling, though, the reason that Johnson's not playing is maybe he's not as good with the glove as Castillo or Evans. I mean, he certainly didn't have a bad year hitting. Other than that, I can't think of any other reason.
Sparky said the other day one of the reasons that Johnson would not start in the series, and there's Anderson. It was a little young, is the way he put it, which I think is a euphemistic way of saying that it's a pressure situation, and he'd like to go with maybe people with more experience, even though Castillo doesn't necessarily fill that field.
Johnson did him some service in the early going this season, you'll remember.
Yep.
There's an unwritten story here, and it's that kid on the mound for the Royals.
And a good fastball for strike.
That's what I mean. Right there.
That's number 5.
He has
for
kept
Saberhagen.
his team in the game. He has never lost his composure. And there is somehow a sense in this crowd of possible resurgence by Kansas City. That's really, despite all our kidding around, what Jim meant when he said Kansas City. Because along about the 4th inning, he said to me, I think Kansas City's going to win this game.
Hit sharply, and White went the wrong way. He read it wrong when the ball left the bat. Frank was going to his right, and the ball was a little bit behind him. Hit very sharply into right center field. So Whitaker is on as we have him isolated.
The shortstop.
Well, a lot of times now the ball will hook back. One of those balls that Frank White should have had and normally does. You don't win 6 Golden Gloves in the American League if you don't make that play. But the turf is a strange character, and that's one of the reasons I think Kansas City has a chance if Saberhagen can keep him in the game, and he's done that.
And he's done that.
It's a big ballpark. You get a lot of bad hops.
Job, and he deserves all the kudos in the world. Comes as advertised by Dick Hauser.
2 out, 7th inning. Trammell hits it in the air to left field, but right to Motley. No runs, 1 hit, and a man left on, and Motley will be leading off when we come up in the bottom of the 7th inning. The Royals trailing the Tigers 3-1.
IBM presents You Make the Call. With runners on 1st and 2nd and nobody out, the batter looks at a called 3rd strike. But the ball gets by the catcher and the batter goes to 1st. Is the batter safe? You make the call.
In these modern times, even the best manager needs help to succeed. For when pressure builds, it becomes harder to keep things rolling without losing control and falling behind. A manager could use the IBM personal computer for smoother scheduling and greater productivity. It can help a manager become a big wheel in the company. The IBM personal computer at a store near you.
Because there are less than 2 out and first base is already occupied, the batter is not allowed to reach first base safely. So if you said the batter was out, then you made the right call.
Dancing waters of Royal Stadium in Kansas City, Missouri. As we go to the bottom of the 7th inning, Dan Petry, pitching beautifully through 6, has allowed 1 run, 2 hits. Both hits in the 4th inning. One of them off the bat of this man, Motley, who popped out in the 2nd and singled in the 4th. Motley 1 for 6 in the series.
3-1 lead. This is the time of the game, and to amplify what you said about the excellence of the Tiger bullpen, when you're a starting pitcher, you start counting the outs. You need 9 outs, maybe only 3 by you.
That's an interesting graphic. Now, who's just joined Bear in the bullpen?
It looks to me that we have both Bear is sitting down and Lopez and Hernandez is up.
Broken bat bouncer, 1 hop. Brookins has it. Put out recorded at first. That's Lopez on the left, and that's actually Bill Scherer, the left-hander on the right.
That's Aurelio Lopez, which is the point.
And there's Scherer, the rail thin left-hander acquired from Cincinnati in August, just prior to the eligibility date.
Mr. Anderson pleased to win, period.
Scherer acquired the eligibility date September 1st. If you're not on the roster by then, unless you can get special dispensation, you're normally not eligible for postseason play. Ripped to the left by Balboni for a base hit. Jones cutting it off, and Balboni has Kansas City's 3rd hit of the night with 1 out in the 7th inning. And so the Royals will get the tying run to the plate in the person of Frank White, who had 17 homers this year.
Had he gotten that hit his last turn at bat, but he was pitched quite differently then.
Well, you do pitch quite differently when you have to get out of a jam. There, I think Petry may have relaxed a little bit, threw him a fastball right in the middle of the plate, and he hit that ball just about as hard as you can hit it on the line.
1 out. Slow runner Balboni at first base. So slow, in fact, and with the situation the way it is, Evans can afford to play behind him. 1-0.
Well, you made the point, Al. He's capable of a home run. Gladys happens to be a very, very lovely lady. Amazed at her husband's prowess this year. She said, I never thought he'd hit 17 in 1 season. He can hit it along the foul line now. Make it 18. Then your prognostication will come true, Jim.
Well, that'll only tie it up. We still have to worry about getting a winning run. Well, Frank White can hit those home runs. As you said, he had 17, but it's going to usually be on a hanging slider.
That's grounded down to 3rd. Brookins goes to Whitaker, 1 to 1st, not in time there. So a little bit high at 2nd, and Whitaker slightly out of sync and trying to turn it over. White still runs fairly well, and Frank is frustrated with his effort here, but he keeps the inning alive anyway.
Well, he got the slider, but it wasn't hanging. Brookins, of course, is thinking, as most third basemen in this situation, you'd like to have a double play, but you want to get the sure out. And Whitaker, of course, doesn't want to throw it away. He makes a good effort, but White's got pretty good speed.
2 down. Slot is the batter. Grounded out twice. Slot 2 hits last night, 2 for 5 in the series now. 1-2 pitch. Broken bat. Soft 1-hopper to Trammell, and he doesn't make the play at second base.
He made a mistake of judgment quite clearly, something you don't often see Trammell do. Should have thrown the ball to first, period. Immediately upon gathering it in.
Ball hit so softly, I think he had trouble reading it off the bat, too. It looked like he could have made the catch on the fly.
Major mistake of judgment, and so a life for the Royals.
And that is Orge, who came over from the Cardinals. They purchased Dane in May. He'd been at St. Louis. Played on the Cardinals championship team in 1982. His brother Garth, the platooning third baseman for Toronto.
Never mind that average you just saw. This kid can hit.
To Lopez. Line through the glove of Whitaker and out into right field as White comes in to score. Swart stops at second, and that makes it 3-2. Orge hitting a one-hopper that just eats Whitaker up.
Nothing Lou could do with that ball. Nothing.
So Orge with what they score a base hit and a run batted in. Buddy Biancalana goes in to run for Orge, who gets a standing O as he departs, and Willie Wilson comes up with a tying run at second base.
Now we've got a ball game, and it's a rare day. In April, May, June, July, August, or September, or October, when you see a team struggle back against these Detroit Tigers in the year of '84. But that Kansas City Royals are in the process of doing. The pinch runner at first base has already been discussed with you.
There's the tying run.
Al Biancalana.
Wilson, the batter, goes after the first pitch and pops it in the air to left field, where Jones will end the inning.
Don't you wonder about going at the first pitch in a situation like that, Jim?
Well, it's just one of he's an aggressive hitter. Thought he had a good pitch and popped it up.
Well, Willie does it a lot. We played 7-3-2 back after this from your local station. Biancalana, who went into pinch run for Orge, stays in the game at shortstop. Kirk Gibson will lead things off with the Tigers, who are on top 3-2 here in the top of the 8th inning, and it's been a big night for Gibson. As we go back to the 3rd inning, he had doubled to drive in a run in the 1st, and then this. And this swing here is now the difference in this game. That was the 3rd Tiger run, and with the score 3-2, Gibson has doubled, homered, walked, driven in 2 runs, and scored a pair tonight.
All right, Saberhagen's job remains what it's been and what he's done so nobly, and now he's got Gibson on an easy pop to short.
Biancalana right there waiting for it and makes the play. First time they've gotten Gibson tonight. Kirk is now 4 for 8 in the series, and Parrish is the batter.
This kid has done everything that Dick Hauser asked of him, could have asked of him. He has pitched an outstanding game against a really outstanding baseball team. It's the other side of the story tonight. And in the meantime, one would be very surprised if Petry returns to the mound for the 8th with the action in the bullpen. The Detroit bullpen.
0-1 the count.
Fortunately, in this ballpark,
that's Hernandez there.
There is Fernandez now in the bullpen.
And Lopez.
And Aurelio Lopez. What a pair.
Well, that's Berenguer actually on the right.
Oh, was it Berenguer?
Lopez was up before, and Berenguer, who was the 4th starter this season, there is Juan. Also throwing in the pen.
Then I think he's just getting work.
He is not scheduled to pitch in any of the games in this series. Anderson's going to go with 3. Ground ball. Bret stays with it after backhanding and throws Parrish out.
Nice play by George.
Was ball skipping through the sliding box, and Bret knocking it down and throwing him out. So 2 away.
One of those plays, if you don't make it, it's a double. George playing deep, which you can do because Parrish doesn't bunt. You just can't believe how hard the ball can skip on AstroTurf. He knocks it down, has an excellent strong arm, and you'll see it right here. Picks it up, knows that Parrish is not very fast. A strong, accurate throw over to first for the out.
2 out, bases empty, and Evans the batter. He's hit the ball in the air 3 times tonight. Once to left, twice to right, and he's 0 for 3. In the air again to right field, and deep, but back goes Sheridan, circling, and on the track makes the catch. So a 4th. fly out for Darrell Evans tonight. Nice job by Saberhagen.
Really nice.
Through the middle innings. He has kept them very much in the game. 3 up and 3 down. Up come the Royals with Detroit on top, 3-2. For the Tigers, they have the lead late innings, and in comes Willie Hernandez. His regular season numbers are reflected there. 32 saves in 33 possible save situations. In other words, every time he came in outside of 1 with a possible save imminent, he was able to do the job. With Nightline coming up, FBI agent situation and Soviet intrigue. The subjects to be covered by Ted Koppel tonight on Nightline immediately following your late local news. The only time Hernandez did not pick up a save in a save situation was last Friday in a meaningless game in New York when he came in runners at first and third for the Yankees and 1 out late in the ballgame, and he gave up a sacrifice fly, retired another man, so it wasn't as if he got bombed or anything. He just didn't pick up a save because a run scored to tie the game.
Well, Sparky shows you one thing here. He shows you he doesn't feel that Willie is overworked in any sense. He was so quick and brilliant last night. He feels he can come right back and do it tonight. And let's see if he can.
Lynn Jones is the batter. He will hit for Sheridan. He faced Hernandez last night and flied out and looks at a strike.
Despite the career record of Jim Palmer, everyone is human. So maybe Hernandez will prove to be.
He hasn't been human all year.
I doubt that he will be tonight.
Line drive, base hit into right field. And maybe more as Gibson plays it near the line, and Jones takes a wide turn and holds with a base hit. Lynn Jones is the tying run with Bret coming up.
Looks like a pretty good pitch away. Fastball out over the plate. Lynn Jones, an excellent right field hitter, slaps it to right.
That's the interesting thing. He threw him the fastball instead of the Scroogey. He usually begins with the Scroogey and then starts, as we noted last night, moving the ball inside with the fastball, using guile to offset the hitter and his ability to guess.
So Lynn Jones, who spent the last several seasons in a Detroit uniform, is at first base, and Bret swings and misses, and the count is 0-1. Bret is fly to center, single to center, grounded to second. He is 1 for 7 in the 2 games.
It's a little bit misleading because he has hit 3 of those 7 outs pretty hard out back, right on the nose.
Putting the line drive caught by Gibson as a key play in last night's game.
Well, this is what baseball's all about. Sparky's got the guy he wants out on the mound. Hauser's got the hitter he wants up at the plate.
You're right. It's what it's all about. Show them.
And who's going to be better?
Count is 1 ball and 2 strikes now on Bret. A little angry with himself. Thought it was a pretty good pitch to hit.
I think you're right about that, Al. But
you can read it in his face.
Well, it looked like he asked Deegan a little high, wasn't it?
That's what I mean.
As I said before,
was not a good pitch.
When George starts swinging at balls.
That's why I think he's angry with us.
1-2. Hernandez dropped down and got him.
What a beautiful pitch. You get George Bret. Maybe the sweetest swinger in baseball, regardless of this year's vicissitudes, misfortunes, and low average for him at 284. You get him that way, you're doing some job.
Now Hal McRae comes out of the dugout. McRae, a fixture here since 1973, has been platooned as the designated hitter this season with George Orta. Has normally faced simply left-handers, has hit them well. 2 years ago, McRae led the majors in RBIs with 133.
Well, he didn't have a bad year as far as average. He just stopped hitting home runs. When I talked to him the other day, he said, you get older, you just don't swing as hard.
Roger Craig coming to the mound. The brilliant Tiger pitching coach. Left alone by Sparky Anderson. It's another part of the genius of Anderson. The way he delegates, the way he knows the people are hired, how to handle them, when to stay out of the way. You heard him in the pregame show. talking about leaving K-line alone to work with Gibson. Just an example.
The crowd is getting on Deegan. They feel that Craig is spending too much time at the mound, as Hauser has already inserted McRae as the pinch hitter here. Tomorrow it's the Cubs against San Diego. The matchup, Dennis Eckersley against Ed Whitson. As Chicago tries to sweep and San Diego tries to stay alive in the National League. American League Series off tomorrow. Friday night, Game 3 in Detroit. Hal McRae, bothered with back spasms over the weekend. That's limited his appearances in the batting cage the last couple of nights.
Well, if he hits it on the ground at somebody, it's going to be a double play, and he'll be right out of this inning.
But he rips it to left field and into the corner for extra bases. The ball following the contour of the wall as Jones rounds third, coming for the plate. The game is tied.
So they have done what didn't seem possible. They have caught the Detroit Tigers in a late inning. They have done it against Willie Hernandez.
Al's point. McRae is coming out for a pinch runner, and the crowd going crazy for McRae.
Give this ball club all the credit in the world, and give a kid 20 years and 5 months old all the credit in the world. The dominating figure of this game now is Bret Saberhagen, who kept his team alive.
The crowd is still, they want McRae to take a curtain call. Al McRae, a very popular man. A little bit of irony here. McRae started his major league career with the Reds when Sparky was the manager. But McRae eschewing the spotlight, seated on the dugout step, not taken now. He finally emerges. The veteran McRae, seeing such limited action this year, comes up after taking very little batting practice as they now walk Motley intentionally. John Watson, the pinch runner now at second base, running for McRae. He's the go-ahead run. They'll walk Motley, and hopefully for Detroit, what they're trying to do is set up a double play, and they have the right man coming up next if they can induce a ground ball in Balboni. Dan Petry will not figure in the decision. Willie Hernandez has given up a run here. Jones leading off with a base hit. Then after Bret strikes out, the double by McRae. The intentional walk. The game is tied 3-3, and Balboni, who has struck out twice and singled and is 1 for 7 in the series, is the hitter.
What an asset to have a Hal McRae.
Well, as I said, not too many home runs, but you hit over 300. You still had a decent season. And he got the biggest hit of the season right there. At least so far.
1 out. 1-0 the count.
Now what you can expect is, after the brilliance of young Saberhagen, we are probably going to see a fellow named Quisenberry. The 2 relief pitches.
Balboni gets under it, but hooks it down the line, well back into the seats and well fouled.
2 relief pitches that Jim talked about last night before the game. Here's the Hal McRae hit in super slow motion. I'll tell you this, he saw it that way. He counted the stitches. Perfectly timed and shot into the left field corner. What a big hit.
One and one on Balboni. Screwball lifted in the air to right field. Gibson tells Lemon he'll handle it. 2 gone. Runners hold. All 3 Royals pinch hitters tonight have produced. Forge with an RBI single in the 7th. Lynn Jones leading off here in the 8th. And then McRae, 3 for 3 off the bench.
The Orge hit was absolutely critical, made it a one-run ball game. And then, if there was a pitching mistake, Jim, and you're the one most qualified on this, it was Hernandez throwing the fastball to Jones to start this inning, and not the Scrooges.
Well, down the hanging screwball he threw McRae, but it seems what's the most critical is the way Trammell played that jam shot by Slot. Instead of the third out, allowed him to score a run last inning.
About that. Terrible mistake of judgment. When a great ball player does that, that's when you know, as Ralph Houck once wrote, ball players are human too.
0-1 pitch to Frank White. Popped up, foul ground, playable for Parrish sprinting over to make the catch. So the inning is over, but the Royals get even. A run, 2 hits, 2 left. Brand new ball game as we go to the 9th. Tied 3-3 in game 2. The City after Saberhagen pitches 8. Quisenberry 44 saves this year. 45 last year. Lynn Jones, who hit for Sheridan and singled and came in to score the tying run, is the new right fielder as we go to the top of the 9th inning. Dan Quisenberry, exceptional this year. He's been exceptional for the last 5, in fact.
Another urgent reminder, stay tuned for ABC News Nightline tonight with Ted Koppel. For the first time in history, an FBI agent has been arrested and accused of selling secrets to the Soviet Union. How serious is it? A look on that story tonight with Nightline, where Ted Koppel presides with his usual brilliance and insight. Be with us then. Stay tuned.
Rupert Jones grounded out, struck out, fly to center. Dan Quisenberry from down under. Strike. 0-1.
So it comes down to this with these two teams, Quisenberry and Hernandez. And Hernandez proving vulnerable and human in his stint this past top of the inning. And now let's see what Dan does. Oh, and he comes up with that underhand thing. So many ways.
Well, he's really evolved as a relief pitcher. Came up with just a sinker. Now he's got a changeup, which we just saw. He's got a great curveball. If you're left-handed, you got a chance. If you're right-handed, you're in trouble. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Now, the way among the other pitchers he's come up with is a knuckleball. However, Quiz told us the other day, you ain't going to see it in the championship series.
And here you see is a very unusual, unorthodox motion. Hitters do not see very many pitches from this position. To Colby over in the National League, that's another thing that makes him as effective as he is. But he very rarely throws 2 pitches the same speed.
Still 2 balls and 2 strikes on Rupert Jones.
It's a deceptive hitter, Jim. You remember in the All-Star game a couple of years back when we had it up in Montreal, hit a big triple, Al?
Yep.
That was the time Dave Concepcion hit the home run.
And Davey was the most valuable player
on the basis of that home run.
Full count. Jones almost fell over.
Well, we talked all night about not getting the low pitch.
Well, I thought that was a little wide.
A little outside, a little low. Quisenberry normally 129 innings, only 12 walks. You got to hit your way on. We know he certainly doesn't want to walk Jones. Lead off the 9th here.
And the pitch is outside for ball 4. And so Jones walks. Leading off here in the 9th inning. And John Grubb will be the batter.
Designated hitter, John Grubb.
Quisenberry just missing with 2 straight pitches.
And he missed, despite the boos of the fans.
Quisenberry, Jim mentioning how difficult it is to get aboard. He's not going to help you.
What he just did.
Normally, he's not going to help you.
I accept the amendment.
Thank you.
What about the bunt, Jim?
Visiting Sparky, I think Sparky's going to bunt.
Earl doesn't.
Well, he doesn't always bunt, but to me, this is with Hernandez on the mound for your team. Sparky, I'd say you got to get the guy in scoring position. A lot of managers, Earl, left-handed hitter up there, says, well, hey, we got Balboni holding Rupert Jones over on first. Let's see if he can hit it in the hole. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If I was managing, I'd be bunting. But then again, I've never managed. Maybe that's one of the reasons.
Maybe time.
Get a throw to first base. Not only keeping
that would make
Jones close as Quisenberry, he's also trying to get Grubb to maybe tip his hand as to what he's going to do at the plate, but Johnny hasn't tipped it yet.
You realize if Jim wanted to manage, he and Earl would be at it again.
So Quiz now twice has gone to first. Once he's backed off the rubber, and if Grubb's bunting, he's hiding it rather well at this point. He has not yet come up on the bat or begun to square around. Now he does. Lays down the bunt. That'll advance the runner as Quisenberry makes the play. If Quiz had let that one roll, it might have gone foul.
Yeah, but you can't take that risk out. What if it stays fair? Then the guy, because it's Grubb, might beat it out.
Could be. I'm just making the point here. Watch this. Just pointing out what he might have thought about. From that angle, it's a good angle to show you that it probably, the way it looked from there, would not have gone into foul ground. Was unable to risk it. Sacrifice is successful. Hauser to the mound, and Lemon is the batter.
Well, Dick has things not exactly. Here's a better angle, maybe. Same angle. All right, let's go. I don't see any question about letting it go foul. I mean, the ball was fair. If he lets it go, he's in deep trouble.
There's no question about it, but occasionally, if the ball does have some spin on it, you might think about it.
Al, you're copping out.
I am not copping out. Let's get Palmer in to settle this arbitration.
I take the out, and that's exactly what Quisenberry did. You both have a very valid point. How's that? Arbitration.
From the truck, they are booing you, and they are quite right. They don't like to see you hedge.
You're right. You're right, Howard. He should have let it go foul. How's that?
What?
Lemon swings and fouls it away down the left field line.
That's Michael's position. What are you talking about?
Oh, on second thought, maybe you're right, Al. I think basically Quisenberry wants to get Lemon out. They had a meeting, and I guess they probably discussed who he wants to pitch to.
Well, Hauser is in a position where he has a chance to win. He's got his man in there. Sparkaroo has his man in there. It's turned out to be a rousing ball game in the late going. In the early going, it was frankly boring. So here we are.
1 ball and 1 strike to count on Chet Lemon. Dan Quisenberry. First into prominence when the Royals won the pennant in 1980. He's been extremely reliable since. 45 saves last year, set a major league mark, which was tied this season by Bruce Sutter at St. Louis. In the air to left field and over toward the line. Drifts Motley.
Very playable.
To make the catch for the out.
Anytime you see a ball like that.
Great throw by Motley. The runner, Jones, tagging, but he's not going to come.
No way. You go back to the late 30s when a very great professional announcer named Red Barber said, look at this throw again. Don't look at the ball. Look at the outfield.
Barbaro Garbey now comes up to pinch hit for Tommy Brookins. So they go with a right-handed batter against the right-handed hitter. Against the right-handed pitcher, as Garbey normally is the DH against left-handed pitching, as was the case last night.
Look at Barbaro's average there. Look at that graphic. This is a troublesome hitter. And Sparky knows he's in trouble. He's going to have doubts now about Willie because Willie gave up a run. He's got to wonder if Willie is sharp tonight. First time in many months that he has to wonder. So he's got doubts. And Hauser, if Quisenberry gets out of this, Hauser may have the edge.
0-1 the count.
Battle between two aggressive managers going on.
He'll certainly have the edge in the bottom of the inning.
Well, that's the big advantage of playing at home.
Yeah.
If Quisenberry does get, excuse me.
Barbe is not out.
No, he isn't. Not by a long shot.
And the 0-1 to him.
He's out.
In the air to right center field. Jones is there, and Lynn puts it away to retire the side. Dan Quisenberry gives up the leadoff walk. Then he sets the Tigers down. Kansas City trying to go to Detroit even in the series as they'll come up in the bottom of the ninth. Being tied 3-3. Back after this message and a word.
We're back live. The pitcher on the mound, Aurelio Lopez. I said Sparky Anderson may have had doubts about Hernandez tonight. The doubts have been confirmed. Hernandez had given up the tying run. Marty Castillo now at third base for the Tigers. And Lopez on the mound. Alfalfa to call the action.
Don Slaught to lead off, and the pitch is inside. This is out of sequence to the way the Tigers normally do it. They have used Lopez as the setup man for Hernandez normally, and that's the way it's been working this season. Now Aurelio comes in with the game tied, and Slaught slicing it to right field. Gibson on the run and makes the catch, and a good jump by Kirk Gibson. Off at the crack of the bat and on the run, and with his speed, making the catch for the
that
first
probably
out.
Would have been a double or a triple last year. Don't forget, Nightline tonight. The FBI agent, Soviet intrigue for the first time in the history of our nation. An FBI agent involved. Ted Koppel will bring it to you in Ted Koppel's forthright, direct, and yet penetrating and brilliantly insightful way. So stay tuned for Nightline tonight. Critical score.
Buddy Biancalana, his first at-bat in the championship series, fouling it away as we look again at the catch by Gibson.
Well, you're right, Howard. The ball gets by him. We probably would have last year, slicing away.
Again, the backhanded catch, just as last night. Just as he showed in the pregame show, it equates with that catch perfectly.
Buddy Biancalana, switch hitter. 1-1 the count. Buddy, one of 6 shortstops utilized by Hauser this season. 2 balls and 2 strikes the count.
That's it.
Swung on late and missed as Lopez just blew it by him. 2 down, and Willie Wilson is the batter.
Well, Lopez has a good fastball. Throws it right by him. No chance. Couldn't catch up.
Willie Wilson hitless tonight.
What a time for one of his inside the park home runs. Oh, what a way to end this game.
Left center field. Let's see who's going to go out. Nobody's going to get it. We may have an inside the Parker. Around second, digging for third. They're going to try to score him. Here he flies. Ball game's over. Oh boy, did he go? Oh, was he flying?
He's 1 for 8 in the series. Ball 1, 1-0. Dick Hauser seeking that first ever postseason win. Game tied 3-3 of the night. 2 balls, no strikes now.
That ball looked like it split the middle of the plate. You see Sparky there saying probably the same, at least thinking the same thing.
Ball 3. Normally a walk to Wilson is a double.
Well, it sure is. And
if he walks, you got to send him. No question.
Nothing to lose.
Lynn Jones on deck. Taking all the way, and the count is 3-1.
Well, Sparky said after the game last night, this is a tough team. No game is easy. No team is easy. 3-2. These are scrappers, these Royals.
That's their style, Howard.
On paper, they don't compare with the Tigers. On paper. And they've got a leader. Lord, how I respect that Hauser.
Oh, 3-2 pitch. Ball 4. So now the winning run is at first base. Lopez knowing it. A walk to Wilson, you know he's going to go. Very often, just like giving up a double. So Lynn Jones is the batter. Wilson 47 steals, and he was only caught 5 times this year.
But remember here, a part of this depends on Lopez, who quickly manifests the fact that he knows what Willie wants to do. Look at that graphic. Remember, Lopez has a pretty good move, and Parrish is the best there is, as Jim noted early in the game, in throwing out base runners. The very best. Right, Jim?
Yes, but we have a pretty even contest. We have one of the best at first base. So, as you said, I think he's got to send him.
Has to.
Nothing to lose.
He doesn't go, and the pitch is a strike. Count 0-1.
Of course, in this situation, you're hoping that Lynn Jones is going to take a strike, which he did. He's hoping that Willie's going to run.
Yeah. Can't really afford to take another one.
Think of the pressure on Parrish, too, at this moment, knowing about Wilson. But you got a veteran poised pitcher on the mound. Got a veteran and brilliant defensive catcher behind the plate. And as Jim said, it's an even match because you've got an absolutely brilliant base runner on the pass.
There he goes, pitch out. Parrish's throw is right there.
And it was. And Parrish got him.
He pitched out, and Lance threw a strike down to second.
Isn't it interesting that they boo? I realize these people root for their team. Well, what have we got here? Mobocracy?
There you see the perfect throw.
What'd you say, Jim?
And Whitaker, who was playing over towards second. Right there, Parrish throwing a strike. Again, Nightline following your late local news, as we'll be going to extra innings here at Royal Stadium in Kansas City. On to the 10th. Detroit 3, Kansas City 3. The end of Parrish's throw on the tag right there by Whitaker. Perfect throw.
And what a perfect shot. Give the man in the truck credit. An occasional moment of excellence by Chet Ford.
What does Forty have to do with the replays?
Chuck Howard. I'll give credit to all of them.
The second baseman, Lou Whitaker.
Well, I don't know how we're getting home tonight. To the 10th inning.
Does it matter?
3-3 tie. Maybe not.
Only important thing is that Jimmy is with us.
Whitaker hits a ground ball to short. Biancalana over to Balboni for the out. One away here in the top of the 10th inning. Trammell comes up. Alan Trammell 1 for 4. After the perfect night last night when he reached base 5 times. 3 for 3 plus 2 walks.
This is going to kind of sound like somewhat of an understatement, but
he had a grand slam this year off of Quisenberry. And this is a guy Quisenberry has to be very careful about.
0-1 the count.
Anyway, to go back to my understatement, normally Quisenberry doesn't pitch in tie ball games.
What do you mean by that?
Well, mainly they don't like to use him in tie games because then he's not available the next night to save a game. But due to the importance of this game, with an off day tomorrow, they're going to use him.
I got news for you. If they don't use him tonight, there's no time ever to use him again.
Well, you're right. That's why I said that was an understatement.
That's the point James was making.
Oh, really?
We're seeing something a little bit out of the ordinary here.
No balls, 2 strikes to count. And And down goes Trammell on 3 pitches. 5 straight sit down by Quisenberry, and with 2 down, it'll be Gibson coming up. Impossible pitch to hit, really.
Well, you got this classic showdown here. Quisenberry, now it happens to be Lopez instead of Hernandez, but the ultimate strengths of the 2 teams right before the American public. And this kid having a big night and a big series and improving with every game, it seems, both in the field and at the plate. And extra innings. Can't ask for more out of baseball.
2 out and the base is empty, and the pitch missing low, ball 1.
As I said, I just, from watching Quisenberry pitch over the years, the right-handers don't have much of a chance. If he's going to give up a home run, even though he did give up that grand slam to Trammell,
line to center.
Normally the left-handers give him trouble.
Wilson staying with it and making the catch. Gibson ripping it, but right at Willie Wilson, and Quisenberry sits them down in order. Jones will lead off, followed by Brett Norda. Bottom of the 10th, we're tied 3-3. Back after this word from your local station. Jim Palmer, Kansas City. Game 2 of the American League Championship Series. Tigers got 2 in the first. Gibson homered in the third. That made it 3-0. Norda drove in a run in the fourth to make it 3-1. Couple of key plays in this inning. Alan Trammell, his misplay, keeping the inning alive. Ward eating up Whitaker, and then McRae's double tied it in the 8th. Lynn Jones in the bottom of the 10th inning. Jones with a pinch single in the 8th inning and staying in the game. Brett is on deck, and then you go to the DH's spot where they've already used Orta and McRae, and Watson would fill that role right now since he pinch ran. Asking for time was Jones, but it wasn't granted, and the pitch was a strike. And the count 0-2.
That's right, Al. The rule is you don't get time. The ball's a strike or a ball. The umpire's just going to call it whatever it is.
Up to the umpire to grant it, and he did. Brett next. Line drive to left field, but right there is Jones. And so one Jones lines out to the other as Rupert pulls it in.
Hit it well, though, and now you've got George Brett. And that may be inaugural. Nobody's going to say this is the greatest baseball game ever played. I will say that this showdown, this situation, is picture perfect for the kind of game baseball is. 6 dull innings, no question about it. And suddenly, the Royals scrapping, undermanned next to the other team, and yet with enough players and leadership to keep fighting back all year long, putting on a show. It's what Tom Boswell of Amherst in the Washington Post, or Jim Murray of Trinity College in the LA Times, or Roger Kahn of Columbia, and the boys of summer, what the great writers understand about the beauty of baseball. Frank DeFord of Princeton and Sports Illustrated. Let's give the great writers their due. They know this business.
Did they all go to college?
They did.
Okay, back to the game.
1 ball and 1 strike on Brett, who rips it into right field for a base hit. So the winning run is on as George Brett signals. Hauser's got a decision here to make too. Brett less than 100%. Do you pinch run for George with 1 out of the 10th inning? He had been doing that in similar situations late in the regular season. Brett looking over toward the dugout, but George will probably stay in the way it looks right now.
I really think if I had my choice to watch any one batter in baseball in a given situation, it would be George Brett. I just think he's such a perfect hitter.
John Watson comes up for the first time tonight. He is in the DH spot since he pinch ran for McRae. Used to be the #1 catcher, and then Schwartz took over. Strike had a real bad year offensively.
Well, excuse me, how they learned how to pitch to John. John is primarily a right field hitter, not a whole lot of power, and you run the ball in on him. really can't do much with it. Once you learn that, makes getting John Wathan out pretty easy. Only hit about 180 this year. Really didn't have much of an opportunity to play. Of course, his one strength is that, other than being a pretty good team player, is that he's an exceptional runner for a catcher.
No balls and 2 strikes, the count. Duke's wife, Nancy.
Not an easy moment for her. She's had the bitterness of hearing the Royals fans boo her husband this year. Not easy either.
Yes, got a piece of it. Still 0-2. Motley is on deck. 3-3 tie in the bottom of the 10th inning. There's Darrell. Very much a must situation, a must-win situation for Kansas City, with the balance of this series to be played at Tiger Stadium. Game 3 coming up on Friday after tomorrow's off day. Fly ball to center. Right to Lemon. So 2 down as Wathan flies out. And Motley is the batter. Lopez has had no trouble with him in Motley's brief career. Bret at first base, the winning run.
You see Lance Parrish setting up inside. If you want to pitch to Darrell Motley, you want to keep the ball inside, but right now is a perfect situation. Lopez has to throw a strike. Motley likes the ball out over the plate, and if you hit one in the gap here, this game's over.
If you hit one in the gap.
Down into the hole, and that's a base hit. So Bret pulls in at second. Winning run at second base now.
You want to know something, Jim? He didn't hit that good a pitch, and yet he pulled the ball when maybe he should have gone to right, and it went into the hole between short and third. Look at it. No, it was enough over the plate to pull it.
Well, he's looking fastball, and it was down, but in the middle of the plate.
Now they're going to pinch run for Bret. We suggested that Hauser had to be thinking about it, and now that he's the winning run at second base, that makes the difference as far as Dick Hauser is concerned. And Greg Pryor, who would stay in the game at third base if we go to an 11th inning, is the man.
Don't you love to see an underdog like this fight this way? Now it's Balboa. Vulnerable in the strikeout sense.
And it's 0-1 on Steve. So Pryor at second. A lot of the Royals will tell you that Pryor may have been the most valuable player on this team.
That's what Bret says, and that's what Frank White says, and that's what Willie Wilson says. So that's pretty good testimony.
He's done a great job filling in because of all of the injuries, especially as in the case of Bret early in the season and then partially down the stretch. Count, no balls, 2 strikes on Balboni.
Stayed alive.
Fouled away. Fouling off another one. Again fouled away. And Balboni pops this one in foul ground over toward the dugout and drifting back into the 6 rows.
Balboni is fighting, staying alive. Big man like this up there. Worked so hard, so long in the minors. Thirsting for the chance. Yankees in their situation, be fair to them. couldn't suffer the strikeouts. Hauser could. And now, with an opportunity to win a big one.
And again, fouling it away. I think that's, what, 6?
As big as he is, as raw as he looks, so sensitive as a human being.
Winning run, Pryor at second base. Once more, the 1-2 pitch to him. Hit in the air to left center field. And Lemon is there. Chet gets underneath it and makes the catch to retire the side. So no runs, 2 hits in the inning. They strand the winning run at second base. Bret is also now out of the ball game as we go to the 11th inning, and Pryor will be taking over at third. Parrish will be leading off with the Tigers. Again, Nightline to follow your late local news. The subjects are reflected there to be discussed on Nightline tonight as we proceed to the top of the 11th inning. Game 2 at Royal Stadium in Kansas City after 10. It's the Tigers 3 and the Royals 3. Staying in the game at third base as we proceed to the 11th inning at Royal Stadium in Kansas City. Tigers winning last night 8-1. Led here tonight 3-0. But the Royals have battled from behind, tied it up. Dan Quisenberry on in relief in his 3rd inning of work right now. And Parrish will start things off. Dennis Eckersley goes to the mound as the Cubs seek to clinch the National League pennant tomorrow against Ed Whitson of the San Diego Padres. And then on Friday, we'll be with you from Tiger Stadium in Detroit. Charlie Leibrandt scheduled for KC. Milt Wilcox for Detroit. Parrish in the 11th takes inside ball 1.
That's what's interesting about baseball. Even the names. Leibrandt, a virtual unknown to the American people, against Wilcox, very well known. On the surface, a mismatch. But look at this game tonight, Jim.
You never know what's going to happen. Would you think a young pitcher, 20 years old, would be able to hold the Tigers to 3 runs, especially after giving up 2 in the first?
Listening to Dick Hauser, I did.
And it's a liner off the glove of Pryor and out into left field. Motley gets it back in, and so Parrish starts things in the 11th inning with a leadoff single.
A righty against Quisenberry, Jim.
There we see Pryor trying to catch the ball. Deflected off his glove. Quicker guy than Lance Parrish. Might be thinking double coming out of the box. But when you're that big, you just don't run that fast.
Alex Grammas gets in a word with Evans, who's hit the ball in the air 4 times tonight. He's 0 for 4, flied to left once and to right 3 times.
Dangerous batsman. Don't let up in this Tiger lineup. The depth of this team, really exceptional.
In a like situation in the 9th inning, Grubb laid down a bunt. Pryor has to play in shallow at third to guard against that possibility.
I bunt.
I think this is one of those situations, though, that with the hole at first, you might swing away. Hope to get that first and third situation. A little unorthodox, but I certainly did see Earl Weaver and other managers do that, and it's worked quite.
Evans has only had 1 sacrifice bunt, by the way, the whole season.
Well, he's not the kind of guy that's going to lay down a lot during the year unless the situation dictates it, and it does right here, and he takes outside. Ball 1. 1-0. Got to go back to 73 to find an 11-inning AL championship game.
How many of you win that year, Jim?
I don't know, 20, 21, 22, something like that. I was in a rut back then.
Evans lays down the bunt this time. Very good one, and he is aboard at first base as Slaught couldn't pick it up. So a perfect bunt that would have moved the man along, and the added bonus of first and second now, and nobody out.
For a guy who only had 1 sacrifice bunt all year, another evidence of The mysteries of baseball.
No question that Slot has him if he picks it up cleanly. And now runners at first and second in a bunting situation once again as they discuss strategy as to how they'll cover this one. On the mound again, a look in super slow motion at Slot.
One of those plays, as you said, you know that Evans doesn't run that well. You just want to pick up the ball, but it looks like he just doesn't pick it up. Very simple.
That's what it looks like.
Just failed to make the play.
So now Jones is the batter. Runners at first and second and nobody on in the top of the 11th inning.
This guy is due.
And in the air, and Slot can't make the catch. Diving for it. So after his error, the recipient now of a big ovation on a great effort by Don, just out of his reach.
Game of inches then, and when he went to pick it up on the play before.
Quisenberry getting together with Pryor. Pitcher can really help himself if he's a good fielding pitcher in this particular situation.
Well, the plays that you work, Al, on one you throw the ball, you run over to third, you're trying to field the ball and force the guy at third. And in another situation, you'll go to first base, the third baseman will come in, and the shortstop will try to beat the runner on second. The third base with a force. A little bit different responsibility as you break towards first base, and another variation is a pickoff play.
Good bunt, fielded by Quisenberry to third, and he gets the force. Dan is not the most graceful or nimble coming off the mound, but he handled that one flawlessly and perfectly.
Well, bunted it right back to him. It's a poor bunt. Look at this.
It's a poor bunt on AstroTurf. Exactly. He broke off the mound. Third base side. Ball was, as you said, a poor bunt on turf right to him. One thing you want to do there is not throw it away, and he didn't.
You can see Slot yelling third. Serving as the traffic cop. Pryor retreating to the bag. 1-5 on the fourth. Stillman at first and second. And Grubb is the batter. John 0 for 3 tonight. Fouled away. No balls, one strike. Bottom of the inning. It'll be the bottom of the order for Kansas City. White, Slot, and Biancalana. 0-2. Dan in his third inning tonight. 1 ball, 2 strikes. They appeal, but don't get the call at third. Bob Jones, third base umpire. He didn't come around.
It's an interesting pitch. You have a sinker ball pitcher trying to pitch up and in to a left-handed hitter, which is the place to pitch, Grubb. Shows you the versatility of Quisenberry. As I said before, in 1980, only had a sinker ball, and now he has 3 other pitches to go with it, which is probably why he's even more effective than he was back then.
In the gap toward right center field, racing back is Wilson, and it's over his head. At least 1 run will score as Evans comes around third, and he will score, and behind him comes Jones as the Tigers now lead by 2. Johnny Grubb ripping one to the gap for a double in right center. And the Tigers lead 5-3.
So the unending strength of this Detroit team. So many different people with capacities to do what has to be done. And a scrappy, plucky Kansas City team against them. Coming back in a manner not done but a couple of times all year long against this Detroit team. But the ultimate manpower belonging to the Tigers. They really, and they haven't won yet, but they are some baseball team.
Here's Lemon fouling into the plate, and the count is 0-1. 1-2 pitch is driven to left field. And the catch is made by Motley as Grubb remains at second base, and there are 2 down.
The third baseman, Marty Castillo.
Castillo is the batter. Marty comes up for the first time in the game. Slice down the line, foul, and the count is 0-1.
Howard, you said this is a funny game, a lot of quirks. They probably walk Grubb if Rupert Jones.
One of the best books about baseball, to use the phrase you just used, written many years ago, was written by Joe Garagiola. Baseball is a funny game. And it was a very insightful book, and he's absolutely right. And this game proves it.
Grounded to short, Biancalana over to first to retire the side, but in the inning. 2 runs, 2 hits. It was a big error. It meant a run by Slaught, and at the end of 10 1/2, 5-3, Detroit. Bottom of the 11th inning, Kansas City trailing in the game now 5-3 in a must-win situation. Only one team in the history of either the American or National League Championship Series has erased an 0-2 deficit, and that was Milwaukee in 1982. And they did it, if there is an easy way, they did it the easier way because they went home and won 3. No team's ever lost 2 at home and come back to win 3 on the road, and that's the prospect that will be facing Kansas City if they lose this one, as White leads off by hitting the first pitch in the air to center field. Lemon went back but comes charging in to make the catch. 1 away.
It's a very kind of thing. Lemon may be the best in the business at. An extraordinary center fielder anyway. He has an almost instantly reflex ability, even if he misjudges a ball as he did there, to recapture and come in on a ball the way he just did. Looks like an easy play in the long run, but not because of the beginnings of it.
Don Slaught is 0 for 4. Fouling it away, and the count is 0-1. Aurelio Lopez is the man tonight for Sparky Anderson after Hernandez had come in, pitched 1 inning, and for only the second time in 1984 failed to produce in a situation in which he had a save in front of him. Line drive, center field, base hit. So the Royals would at least get the tying run to the plate. On a single to center by Don Slaught, Biancalana is due up, but UL Washington, the erstwhile Kansas City shortstop, will come up to bat for him.
And another tough, underrated batsman. Good contact hitter. Knows how to get on. We go back to House's use of the earlier use of Dane Orch.
Hauser's had success tonight every time he's gone to his bench. Orch with a single. Jones then singled in the 8th to lead to the tying run, which was produced on McRae's double. Pinch hitters have been 3 for 3, and the switch hitting Washington up here right now. Ball 1. UL hampered by injuries this season, thus he was limited to appearing in only 63 games. Minus the toothpick, takes the strike. 1-1. He's the last man on the bench, Howard, outside of the pitchers.
Has occasional power, can surprise you with it.
Well, normally you just pitch him away and play him that way and hope he hits it at somebody. And there you saw Lopez throw the ball right by him.
1-2. Down he goes. And the Tigers are not away.
The center fielder.
Well, you're not 10-1. Not having a good fastball. There he just throws it right by him. Very charty.
Just another manifestation of the depth of strength of this Detroit team. You said early on, very simply, Jimmy, as Sparky has the horses. He does, but he really uses them well.
Well, he's the first one to admit that. He said, great players make a great manager, and I'm a perfect example of it. I think he's being a little bit too humble because, as you said, he's done a great job. I get the feeling that he would win just about anywhere he would go.
You're right. Absolutely.
He's proved at the very start of the telecast when Al opened the actual game show. He talked about the hurt in Sparky Anderson, the still not fully explained or disclosed circumstances under which the Reds dismissed him. But he's a remarkable man. These two managers are really beautiful to watch.
Meanwhile, for Hauser, the frustration continues. 0-7 coming in postseason. Slot is at first base. Royals are down to their final strike, and the 0-2 pitch to Wilson nearly hits him. If you can keep it alive, you've got Lynn Jones on deck.
Not exactly the power hitter you'd want for the occasion.
No, but maybe you can hit one in the gap, and you'd be tied again, especially with Wilson at first base.
If he did, we'd have a scoop.
Yep. Willie Wilson hitless tonight. Little chopper. That's going to be a very tough play. He's hit a fly.
Forget it.
The winning run will come to the plate. So an infield single for Willie Wilson to put runners at first and second and 2 down. And Lynn Jones coming up, who has singled and fly to left.
Maybe we can get that scoop, Al.
A roof shot. Smart play by Castillo. You know the guy that's hitting. You know it's Willie Wilson. You know you have no chance. Not risking throwing it away, putting the possible tying run at second. He just holds on to it.
Foul tip. No balls, 1 strike.
Isn't that interesting? Who would guess before this game began that the man who may have gotten the game-winning blow would be Johnny Grubb? Out of all of the great names here.
Fouled away, and so again, Kansas City down to 1 last strike with a count 0-2.
The point I tried to make last inning is that if Rupert Jones bunts them over successfully, they walk Grubb and pitch to Lemon. So sometimes things don't work out the way you want them to, but they do work out.
Oh, 2 pitch to Jones is popped up in foul ground. Back to the screen comes Parrish, but no, doesn't have room.
No chance.
Tying run at first base. There's the runner at second. Slot. Willie Wilson, that's a good man to have as the tying run. Hit one down the line or into the gap, and you got a tie ball game.
Well, he's the type of guy, Al, that can score on a long single with that kind of speed. When he gets going, covers a lot of ground in a hurry.
And also, you got the advantage with first and second. They're not going to hold him on, so he gets a big lead and a big jump. And the pitch on the way is lined to right field, but right to Gibson. And the Tigers go home to Detroit, needing 1 win for the American League pennant, as the Tigers win it in 11 innings in Kansas City by a score of 5-3. So Johnny Grubb with the game-winning hit, a double in the 11th inning. And then Lopez does the job to win it to beat Quisenberry. Gibson hits the only homer in the game, and we'll talk to you on Friday from Detroit. Al Michaels, Jim Palmer, Howard Cosell. Good night from Kansas City. The final score in 11, Tigers 5, and the Royals 3.